Katherine Wright, right?
Yes.
3, 2, 1. Katherine Wright. And you just asked me, for anyone who doesn't know who's watching this or listening, generally I meet the people, the person and I that I'm podcasting with, we meet 2 minutes before the mic turns on. Mm-hmm. So it's like risky because I have nothing prepared, and which is part of the fun. Which is like, okay, how good am I at talking to people and extracting stories from people? Because you're like, what is this? What's the purpose? And I was like, we got to make this hot now because you just told me something about yourself that I was like, oh, that's what I think. Like you want to know the backstory.
Yeah, always.
And that's you're like, what's the backstory of this podcast?
Yeah,
what's
totally.
your purpose? And that essentially is the answer to that question, is that I seek out people's backstories. Okay. Like you are professional photographer, creator, author, a teacher. Like I need to know how you get there. So I apply that to this, whoever I'm sitting down with. Like last 3 guests were a CEO of a tech startup, an astronomer, and I don't know, a bank robber or something. I forget like the order, an autism researcher. So yeah, I just need to know that story, like extract information from people, which is what, as a photographer, that's kind of what you're doing as a creative person.
Yeah.
All right. So, and then I always start these podcasts. I tend to talk for like 30 seconds to a minute and a half because I get so excited. I'm like, okay, we did just meet. And so I'm like, I got to let you know that I'm friendly. like I have to like take it upon myself to break the ice. So now with that said, please tell me Katherine Wright's story.
Well, there's a lot. But I think that like to circle back to like what I initially had asked you is like I'm equally intrigued by people, and I'm intrigued about their stories and like their origins, where they're coming from, what their goals are, especially when it comes to like unique businesses, kind of like what you have, you know. So it's like, so why did you start doing a podcast, and what are your goals, and like where do you see this growing? Because when I start hearing somebody's story or information, regardless of like which area it comes from, like my mind automatically starts going into like overdrive, and I'm just like boom, 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 boom. Okay, so these are like, this is your goal, this is how you get there, and that's how I kind of like operate. So I would consider myself a creative, not just like a photographer, because I do photography, videography, I cook, I sew, I build set designs, I paint, pretty much like anything that has to do with like creation in any form. I'm a super nerd for and like want to dive into it. So I kind of express that on multiple levels of like just making it happen.
And it's like a drive. You need to do something, and they have to be varied, right?
Well, I think that if I was just in one creative discipline, I personally would get really bored. Like, I think to me, that's why like engaging with people is so important to me, because everybody is different. Every project is different. And I like walking in with a new set of challenges every single time and coming out with something that's a little different, something a little more unique. So it's a little bit of a different process than just like, I think a person who's like, you know, I shoot, this is my style, which is awesome. But for me, like, I like change.
And that confuses people, doesn't it? Because we're so used to this. Well, what do you do? And okay, I'm a photographer, and this is my style. Like, it's all A, B, C, D. But people are way more complicated than that. I think
so.
Even just the average person is way more complicated than that. They don't realize how complicated they are, but because they define themselves by those A, B, C, Ds. What am I? But someone, you know what I've run into? Like you just saying all these, the photography, the writing, the sewing, the painting,
yeah.
All of that. We recently moved into a new house, and I've had this like just this passion of, okay, what do I want this to look like? It's been there, I don't know, over 2 months now, I guess, and it's creating everything. Like, what is this room going to be? Is there a theme to this? Let me do this here. Like, these colors are crazy. What I'm doing with the house, my girlfriend is like, what? I did not expect this. And I was like, you just give me a canvas. Like, I walk into a house, like, okay, this is ours. I could do whatever I want.
Yeah.
It's a canvas.
Yeah.
And now it's like, it's taken a while, right? Like, that's part of you probably run into it as well. You start something, and then you kind of pull back on it, and then you move to something else, and then you circle back to stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like for sure, these rooms are taking a while, like collectively. Like I've knocked down 3 of the 5 rooms so far, but it's like it takes longer than I thought because I need to see it, I need to visualize it, I need to think, I need to go do other things and learn from those things to complement that. So that's kind of what I get. What you're saying is when you say you do when I talk to people that do as many a creative as you define yourself. But that's the problem. I get it. That is, it's not a good thing either. It is a problem.
It is a problem. Well, I think that, I mean, for me, it's not a problem because it's just who I am. It's how I've always been. But I think that in our society, like, we really like to have labels and categories. Like, it's just how, like, our human brains are able to function. So when you take something out of that context, people get really uncomfortable. And then it's also kind of hard to communicate that without overwhelming somebody. So, I'm just like, oh, I do this or do that, or like whatever makes the most sense, like in that circumstance. But just like you were talking about your house, like I think that is like the creative process. And I think that sometimes, like, being a creative, we feel like, well, I know for what I've heard from other people, you start a project and then you go through to the end and you want to see the end. But the thing is like true creation is like constantly evolving. So maybe this chapter is closed, maybe you start another one, maybe you circle back, but that's the beauty of it, is that it's not linear, and I think that that's like one of the most fascinating parts of watching that all come together.
It is. I actually use that same term all the time with myself. I am nonlinear, and my ideas are nonlinear, my projects are nonlinear. But it's important to recognize that, because I do start things, say whether it's the house or writing or a piece of art, whatever I'm doing, or just reading a specific subject, whatever I'm doing, is I intentionally stop and walk away because I know when I come back to that, I'm going to see it differently. And I'm going to take all this other information of the stuff I've done, and it's going to look different to me now than it did a day ago, a week ago, a month ago. And I find that that's just like, it's because it kind of creates you're just waiting for those new ideas, that new perception to come in. And they genuinely show up. Like, they're like, okay, there it is. Like, that's why I waited, because now I see the picture more clearly. Say like this, I just started the bathroom, painting the bathroom and decorating the bathroom and putting up cedar. I decided to put up cedar paneling on one wall, and it's going to be a really crazy room. But it's been sitting there with the can of paint for like a week, and before it took me 3 weeks to get the paint because I needed to keep looking at it, like, okay, am I sure? And then we got the paint, and I'm like, all right, I think that. And then I just did a little bit on the wall and thought about that for like 4 or 5 days, and it wasn't until yesterday I painted like 80% of the bathroom, and I was like, okay, there's still a little bit left right here, but now I'm looking at it differently. I'm going in and out of it, and I'm like, I put up some of the cedar paneling, and I'm like, okay, but now working? What? It is working, but it's starting to take a turn into something else that I was like, okay, that's not how I originally envisioned it. But now that these pieces are in place, it's like 80% done, and there's some, now I'm looking at it differently. It's like the previous iteration of it didn't exist. Like when it was just blank and crummy old walls on it, I was like, that didn't even exist. Now there's a new project. And now what is the new project? What are these new ideas from this new project? So that kind of stuff, whoo, and just talking about it right now, like, this is going to help. Oh, it's good. So, I don't know, it's intense. But it's fine. It's weird. It's and they all get finished.
Of course.
They all get finished, but it's a fun trick to learn about yourself, but it's hard. It's hard to apply. It's like hard to monetize stuff sometimes.
And I don't think that people allow themselves like what's called like white space, like that time period where you kind of have something kind of on hold, or I like to refer to it as like marinating. So you're just kind of like letting things like soak in and seeing like what you get out of it. But I think sometimes like stepping away is a really good way for you to get perspective and, to get inspired by other things, just in the creative process in general. So.
Right. And there is a format and a history of this. Like Leonardo da Vinci has, I don't know how many, like 60 or 70% of his works are incomplete.
Exactly.
It's like, cheat off of that guy.
Yeah.
Just cheat off of him.
Yeah,
but
we have a lot of pressure to like finish and like, have it perfect, and there's all of these other things that are kind of projected on it. So it's like it's very against like I think the true artisan soul.
Right. Like society kind of, our civilization kind of crushes creativity. Like it suppresses. It's like, okay, it says we value it very highly, but the older you get, I think the less valuable people see it. Like, oh, everyone loves a creative kid, right?
Oh, sure.
And in high school, yeah, go nuts. It takes art class. Even college, okay, you could take art and everything. But if you're 25 or 35 years old and you better have a job and make money, and this better, like, it's because it's near impossible to make money off of creativity. Near impossible in certain areas of it, right? But you got to be it's with everything, right place, right time,
well,
right idea.
I think it's engineering. You know what I mean? I think that, so that was my dad, by the way.
An engineer?
No, the whole you've got to like take care of yourself and have a job. While my parents have always been like supportive of my artistic abilities, I think that just speaking from their perspective, like their main concern is just making sure that I was always going to be okay. And, being in the creative arts and having a job that's not, you're not necessarily on salary or you're self-employed, like there's a lot of risk there. And parents don't want their kids to take those kinds of risks. And they don't, and at least that was like kind of my situation.
That's most. That's for sure.
I mean, I can speak to my own. But so when that happened, and it took me a really long time to like launch my own business, because I kind of had this fear in the back of my head of always making sure that I had my ass covered. I can say ass, right?
Dude, you can say ass, shit, goddamn, piss, whatever you want.
But it was a really CYA, like I moved out from my parents when I was 17.
You say CYA?
Cover my ass.
All right.
Yeah.
Cover your ass.
Cover your ass.
All right.
CYA letter. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't do so well with the. Is that the kids use that on texts and stuff?
Legal term usually.
Is that? Yeah. Okay. If I saw it written, I would have known what you
sure.
meant. But I'm like, oh wait, I never hear anybody talk like that, because it's just like cover your ass.
Yeah. So I moved out. I grew up in southern West Virginia on 25 acres of land with no neighbors, and I was this super weird artsy girl in school who was just constantly like in the dark room when I got to high school and doing everything that I could creatively. And when it came time to like choose a major, I was like, none of this fits me at all. Like, dude, I was like, I don't even know. And it's just so much pressure at that age. And like, I just had no idea. I didn't know. So at 17, I moved to Pittsburgh, a brand new city where I knew no one. And everybody, was like, oh my God, she's going up to the big city. And I'm like,
West Virginia's not that far though. But
no, it's 4 hours. Like, but that was like a big deal.
Right. Well, if you're leaving a farm.
Yeah. And especially because like, you don't know anybody, but I made it happen. And then when I moved to New York, it was another like, I'm like, it's not the city, but so it's been an interesting kind of thing. But that was always like a really important thing in the back of my mind is, being solvent and having like that sustainability. So it's taking me, I think I've been more cautious in trying, and I'm still like teetering on this edge of jumping off, because, that is a really important thing. And when you've been taking care of yourself since you were like, a teenager, like you really pay attention to that stuff.
When did you know you had something? They're like, oh, I think I can make this work. Or was it like, oh, I have to make this work or I'm going to be miserable?
As far as like the photography
thing? Just like that you can take care of yourself.
So as far as like a living.
Right.
I never knew. Yeah, I never knew. And to be honest, I think that when you are like in your own business, like there is always that vulnerability and fear, but you just have to do it and you hustle and you are really, and that's, and that's why like I have my hands in so many other things too, because I'm always making sure that everything is flowing. So.
What do you think about this hurricane? I just got to say this because 20 minutes before you came in here, my sister's in North Carolina and she's writing it out.
Yeah.
And most of our other friends are leaving.
Yeah.
And I told her, I was like, I'm going to talk about your hurricane on the podcast and how crazy it is. Like that this thing is coming to kill you and you're just... No, she is actually taken very, very seriously. But I'm like, I run. When I know something's coming to kill me, just run.
Yeah.
Like it's really not much else to decide.
Why did she decide to buckle down?
She has a bunch of reasons. One of them is there's an old people couple across the street from her.
Yeah.
And they have nowhere to go, no options. So there's that. She's feeling compelled to like be there for them. You know, the kind of like worst case scenario, like something bad happens to them, we have to be there to help them. So there's that, and then there's another friend's mom who's also old. I mean, like 60s or 70s.
Yeah.
And she's not leaving. And so she's like, what do we do?
Is this your older sister?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And why would you think that?
Because she's take care of people.
She's a take care of her.
Yeah.
And that's been her life.
Yeah.
She's been in childcare her whole life. Like, she's a take care of everyone kind of person. She's really good. I mean, it comes from my mom too. Like, she's a really take care of people, really compassionate person, and so is my sister. So my mom would probably come up with the same reasons my sister did for not leaving. It's like, no, we can't leave because what happens to them?
Yeah.
But I was like, dude, this thing's coming to kill you. Like, run. So, I mean, West Virginia might get a little sniff of it, right?
Yep.
That's a beautiful part of West Virginia. Western, southern.
Yep.
I love that area of West Virginia. Love it. I've driven through that several times. And south of Pittsburgh. I love that area. I forget the name of it. So are you south of the University of West Virginia? Whatever town that... Okay.
Morgantown.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a really neat part. So
famous for burning couches. And
what is it?
It's famous for burning couches.
What is Morgantown?
Oh, yeah. You didn't know this?
No, go on.
Oh, yeah. I didn't go there, but it's just like, they're crazy, you know, and...
What is burning couches?
Oh, when they win a football game, literally, like, the students will take their couches out of their apartments and dorms, throw them in the middle of the street, and set fire to them. You've not heard this?
Just for a standard game?
Yeah.
Like, well, we won, or does it have to be like a big rivalry game or something?
I am not an alum, so I'm not privy to that. I just know that they are very, very famous for that. So
I'm gonna log that somewhere in my brain.
You should, and Google it, because
WV. They burn couches when they win a football game.
Or at least that was the thing. I think that there's like a public notice like on campus that like they're not allowed to do it anymore because it was so like widespread.
You know what? Actually, it does seem absurd to burn your own couch. Because I'm forgetting the school where it was.
I don't know. It depends on the couch.
But true. If you're like, shit, it's time. I need a new freaking couch. This is good reason as any to burn it and get a new one. Yeah, there's another school. I forget which one. I think it's in New York. That whenever they win a hockey game or football, whatever it was, there's around campus. There's all these Adirondack chairs.
Oh.
So I think it's like if they won a rivalry game versus this one other school, the students for years were gathering up these Adirondack chairs and making a big bonfire out of them, and then the school, seems like it took them longer than you would think, but they got wise to it and chained up the chairs.
Oh, okay.
And they're like, okay, you guys can't burn this anymore. Stop burning our chairs. See, that you're actually burning someone else's.
Yeah. Even
though if you are paying a tuition, it's kind of your chair anyways, but you're not responsible for replacing it.
Right.
But you're burning your own couch though? Ugh, just think of some gnarly college gross couch.
It might need to be burned at that point, you know?
Where'd you go to school in Pittsburgh?
I went to the Art Institute.
I knew there was an art institute out there.
Yeah.
I knew that. Is that downtown?
Yeah.
Okay. My friend and I, one of the reasons I kind of have some familiarity with West Virginia, not specifically where you live, but my friend and I, for 3-4 years in a row, and then I got injured. I couldn't do it this year. The last 2 years, we would ride our bicycles from Washington, D.C. to Pittsburgh.
Oh, cool.
And we would go along the C&O Canal, and then we spent a lot of time in West Virginia side and Maryland side. And, there's a couple towns in West Virginia, though, that are like, holy crap. Like, one that we had to sleep at. It was like, okay, there's nothing, no other town we could stay within, like, 30 miles. So we have to sleep there. And it's just the gnarliest, grossest, like, oh, yeah, you guys exist too, town. Like, and the restaurant was the gas station.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I forget the name of the town. I won't blow it up right now. But that is some of my familiarity with West Virginia. But then once you start getting in the, like, nooks and crannies, like, it is beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful place. So you're sort of a country girl, but you love the big city. And, well, being an artist is not... It's almost impossible to do in the country. You have to come to a city, right?
But it's not my, like, being there is not my vibe. Like, it never really was. So...
Was that because high school sucked?
Elementary school, like...
They all sucked?
It's not that they sucked, it just didn't suit me. Like, it wasn't just not my kind of people, you know, like...
They burn couches.
Whatever. Yeah. So, like, moving had always been, like, something that was going to happen. It was just a matter of when, where, and how.
So what do you do at the Art Center?
So I teach photography at the Art Center.
And how does that start? How do you teach one photography? Because everyone thinks they're a photographer, right? Like,
well, yeah, I guess.
I
don't know.
But I mean, some people are. Like, you are a photographer, but I don't know. I see everyone thinks with our phones, it makes it really easy to be a photographer, but there's so much more than just to applying a filter.
Well, it depends, I think, on the level of, like, what your goals are. You know what I mean? And that's kind of how I always approach the classes, because, like, I have some people who truly just want to learn how to use their iPhones better. Some people want to understand their DSLR cameras, and then other people are really interested, like, in the art form and understanding how, like, all of those components come together. So I think the first thing about teaching is really just, like, again, coming up with a backstory and understanding, like, what their particular goals are. And then, you know, my process is really just, like, taking photography and, like, demystifying it, if you will, and letting people really understand, like, the art form and the science and how that kind of merges together. So I'm a real big, like, process person. I want to know how it works, because once I know how it works, then I can explain it to somebody else.
How does a photographer see the world? Like, when you're going to, what do you primarily take pictures of? Is it people?
Well, that's a two-part question. The first one is, how does a photographer see the world? And the awesome answer to that is every person sees the world differently. You could have 3 photographers in the same room with the same, like, subject, and each person will photograph it differently, which is pretty amazing. And then what do I mainly shoot? I photograph everything. And I know that that's such, like, a blanket, everybody wants categories, but I really do photograph everything. I think my favorite subject is to photograph portraits. Like, I really love people. I love to connect with them, and I love to do creative portraiture, but that's, like, kind of my own personal work for me.
So do you mean, like, people, like, dress up like werewolves or Victorian stroll outfits, like that kind of portrait, or like me sitting here like this, like, okay, snap it?
Kind of a blend of both. So I am, like, have always been super inspired by, like, art history. That's always been, like, you know, my backbone. Like, my favorite book growing up was this, like, huge encyclopedia of art history, and that's, like, I would sketch from it and draw from it when I was younger, before I even really, like, took on photography. And there was just something so, like, amazing about how, you know, people were captured. So I was really, really drawn to that. And I also really love, like, mythology and women in myth. I think that that's always been really fascinating for me. So, like, when I was 5, my parents got me a 110 Minnie Mouse camera. And at that time, like, I used to sketch dresses, and I would give them to my mom, and she would make them. And when I got the camera, I would design dresses, and my mom would sew them, and then I would have my friends come over and model for me, and I would pose them. So that's kind of where I started with all of this.
This is at 5?
6. At 6, that's when I was doing that. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So those were our play dates, and I was like, oh, let's do this or do that. And, you know, I'd be serious. And I still have the images, like, from then. I still have the film. I still have the negs. It's pretty.
Were you bossy to your friends? Like, no, you're supposed to stand like this. No.
Probably.
That's not right. The bratty 6-year-old. No, it has to look like this.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I was, like, too bratty, but I definitely knew what I was going for, you know. And I was really captivated with it. So that's kind of, like, where I started with all of that. But it was really inspired by, like, the art history, and then, you know, going into the portraiture. It's just always been something that I've been drawn to. So I've, like, kind of carried that throughout. And yeah.
Wow, that's an early seed to have been planted.
Yeah.
And your mom to have, like, fostered it, sprinkled some water and fertilizer on it, and making dresses that you drew.
She is pretty amazing. When I was, have you read the Polar Express or are aware of it?
I'm aware of it.
Okay, so in the Polar Express, like, the boy, like, goes to the North Pole, and he has this amazing experience, and then he comes back, and, you know, he asked, like, for Christmas for a bell, right, from one of the sleigh, and it was, like, kind of his proof that Santa existed. So I was probably, like, 10 or 11 at this time, and, like, all your friends are whispering, like, oh, there's no Santa Claus, and I'm like, what do you mean? So we would write letters to Santa every year, and this is like pre like internet, pre like Pinterest or whatever, and I had asked for a silver bell like the night of Christmas Eve, you know? So in the morning, in the very bottom of my stocking was this absolutely gorgeous ornate bell with like leather strap on it. Like, my mom just kind of had this stuff on deck to be able to make this. And she would, like, take parchment paper and hand calligraphy, like, letters back from Santa and the Tooth Fairy and all of that. So she really, like, fostered our imaginations.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So your mom was all in. Pop's not so much, which is that's kind of the archetypical relationship. Is like the mom's like, yes, go do this. This is great. You can do anything you want. This is real. This isn't just fun. Like there's something here, like fostering that. And Dad's like, that's not the real world.
Well, I think like Dad doesn't connect to that kind of way, you know? So it's not that he doesn't appreciate it. It's just it's not something he can connect to.
Was he a coal miner?
No.
All right. No. No, you said mythological women or historic women.
Yeah, women in myth.
That makes me think of like my favorite mythological woman. She's not even mythological. It's Viking women. What do we call those? Don't they have is that the right term?
I'm not sure.
I thought they might have like a specific title.
Well, there's like, I mean, you have Norse gods and goddesses.
Right.
As well as...
No, but I think the actual, besides the gods and goddesses, but the actual women Vikings.
Yeah.
Like Hagar the Horrible and his wife. Mm-hmm. Like, I was fascinated by that cartoon just because I'm like, whoa, look at that Viking woman. Like, she's wearing a horn helmet and she's like robust and can kick some kick some ass. Like, occasionally I remember seeing her with an axe. I'm like, that's a badass woman. And then I started to learn, like, oh, that's just not a cartoon. Yeah. Like, there's some of those women really existed, and some of them, there are some stories of them fighting in battle. And I'm like, who are these women?
Yeah.
And then I watch on the History Channel, they're like a year or so ago, I started watching it, it's just called Vikings, I guess.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, and there's Viking women everywhere. I gotta say, like, I loved that show.
Yeah.
But I gotta say, a good 60% of it was because of the Viking women story.
Yeah, sure.
Like, I'm like, this is so great. Like, not just because I'm like, pro-woman, but it is kind of like those are some badass people.
Yeah.
And then you got some badass women. They're like what? Like, these people survived.
And they're super empowering.
And it is. It's
and what's really interesting about, like, I think in that time period and what was going on, like, it didn't matter if you're a man or woman. Like, you had to step up and take care of shit. Like, you know, it wasn't about gender. It was about, like, your community. It was about your whatever they... You know. Yeah,
it's like, hey, how do we survive? Because this sucks for all of us.
Right.
Like, this is really hard to be alive. We don't have this. We don't have these walls to protect us from, we don't have locks on our doors to protect us from intruders or bears or where are we getting our food? Huh?
Exactly. How are we going to
We're sitting there drinking our coffee. Somebody made it for us. Like, what? Coffee? Huh?
Yeah.
Water? Like, none of the food? Like... So yeah, I love watching that. Even though, obviously a lot of it is just fictitious, but a lot of it is like how this has to be pretty close to how it was. Like, women then and men, nobody was allowed to be lazy. You weren't allowed just to be the house husband, the housewife. Like, you would die.
Right.
So everyone was like, that's some strong people.
And nobody bitched about work either because it's just what had to be done.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it was more in a survival thing, which I think is really interesting.
You know where you can encounter that is with the Amish people.
Oh, sure.
You ever, first place I lived in New York was upstate New York, St. Lawrence County. And there's a lot of Amish up there. And I had no idea before we moved there. I was like, what? There's all these Amish people.
Yeah.
And once we learned where they were and saw their farm stands and, like, hey, they would sell chickens, they sell eggs, they sell meat, they sell maple syrup, all their stuff, right? All their stuff from their farm. You start to establish, like, a little relationship with them. And these people are out there working and, like, sunrise to sunset. Like, they're out there working. And nobody seems to complain. Nobody seems to be in a bad mood. Everybody's just working. Even the little kids, like, my favorite scene happens so many times. We go to buy eggs from the Amish farm, and usually the mom would come out. Mm-hmm. Usually it was the mom doing, like, the talking because husband was out chopping wood or doing, that kind of stuff. And so it was like, hey, can we get some eggs? And she's like, okay. And she would holler for her little son or her little daughter. Yeah. Well, because I don't. They speak their Dutch or whatever it's called,
sure.
like that. So I don't even know what they're saying. So I could just say like, "Whoa," I don't even know what they're saying.
I like the word holler because that's what we say in West Virginia.
Oh, all
like,
right.
I'll holler at you later.
Like ER or A? Holla?
Holler.
Holler. All right.
Like I'll holler at you.
Holler at you.
It's got to be no. Holler at you. Like it's got to be twangy.
Holler at you.
Exactly.
It's the it. Holler at you. I like that. Anything to make you feel closer to home. But yeah, the little kids would then go and just go get their eggs. Like fill up our fresh eggs, like right out of the chicken's butt. You put them in a bucket, come over a walk, put it in our little carton, and we'd be on our way. And I'm like, these people have a very interesting existence because it's like you're walking into a time warp almost. Like, is this a time machine? Is this what... This is the closest to real life time machine you can almost get. Is just walking in here. There's no electricity. There's no nothing. There's no TV. There's no games. There's nothing. It's just people doing stuff to stay alive. Like that's it. Which is really, it's really strange to know that it still exists and it's not that far away from us. Like those people are living the way. I mean, they're more like 1830s, 1840s. But there's not that much difference between somebody who lived in the 1830s and someone in the 1500s or 1600s. There's not that big of a leap. It's like, oh yeah, you still grew all your own food and things might kill you and you don't have electricity. Like, not that big of a difference. Compared to someone now, say like the difference between even year 2000 versus now.
Yeah.
Like you said, growing up without, all this stuff without the internet, without Pinterest or anything. Like, it's crazy.
Do you remember dial-up and somebody pick up the phone and then you couldn't log on and you're just like, ah!
I remember all of that very, very well. And it frustrated. And the thing is, I loved that. And I was very resistant to getting a cell phone. And I'm resistant to social media. So the day it came out, like I don't know if you remember, far back as even Friendster and then MySpace and then Facebook, took over, and then all this other Twitter, all these other offshoots of that. Like, okay, we could do that. Insert. I was resistant to. I was 21 or 22 when like MySpace became a thing, and that's prime age. You're supposed to be into it. I saw it for what it was, and I was like, I can't do this. Like, I really liked 1990 and 1995 when I was much younger, and I'm like, it was easier to think. And when I saw that stuff, I was like, I can't think. Like, I don't even know what this is. And I've carried that. See, I sound like an old man now.
Yeah.
But I was an old man then. I was an old man then. Like, I'm still resistant. It's kind of a weird... It's been a weird 15, 20-year social experiment of mine that I can't believe I've endured this long. But I'm like, my mind hasn't changed about it. I look at this stuff, all the social media, and I just had no interest in it then. But I need to know what it was. It's good to understand.
It's a vehicle, yeah.
But I like that I get to observe what everyone else is doing with it and how it's affecting everyone else. And now, we all know, like, inherently, you hear it more and more, like, people are tuning out. Like, I just can't do this anymore. Like, I'm wasting too much time. There's too much negativity on Twitter. I can't do this Facebook, blah, blah, blah. Just shutting off. And there's, like, a reasonable move back to flip phones, right? Like, there's people that do that. Real life people walking around weirdos with flip phones, which is, my girlfriend won't let me do that, but I want to. But it's like, oh, so was I right? Was I right to stay away from this like 20 years ago or 15 years ago? It's just strange because it is, I don't know, you describing like that world with your mom, of you just sitting there and drawing and sketching these things out and having your mom encouraging it. Like, that seems so, it seems so like folksy, folksy. Like, no, now most 6-year-olds you think would be designing on what do you call those?
Tablet, yeah.
A tablet.
Yeah.
And no, you're sitting there drawing, sketching it out, and your mom's using scissors and cutting it out. Like, my friend, I invite my friend over for, I don't know, do kids do that anymore? I get the feeling, I don't know if that happens.
What, invite friends over for what?
Like, to not play video games or something, and then there's no screens involved. Because the whole thing you're picturing, like, in my head when you're saying that, I'm like, oh, there's no screens involved in this. This is just, like, little kids doing crazy things, and your mom sticking the bell in the bottom of your, like...
I just remember in the summer, like, as soon as the sun was up and breakfast was on the table, like, we were outside literally until, like, it was dusk, like, outdoors all day. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I couldn't imagine living any other way.
We live, people that grew up like that, I think it's such an advantage. The first half or 60% of my life, there was none of the internet or anything.
Yeah.
And which was pretty awesome because you learn more. I feel like I learned more that way. Mm-hmm. I don't know, not to just be like thrown into, because if you have a kid now, you just kind of have to throw them into this technological world.
Well, they're brought up with it. They're brought up with like FaceTiming with their grandparents, and I think that's like there's a lot of amazing advantages in that, but like they won't ever know anything other than that. They just have no context.
Yeah, exactly. And even you describing, you teaching at the art center, photography classes, and you went right for the teaching people people just want to know how to use their iPhones better. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, damn it, yeah, they are just using their phones. Is anyone coming with like a camera? I remember my sister.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Most of my classes are with like actual DSLR cameras.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
That's what I was hoping.
Oh, yeah.
I had a picture of that because I was like, oh no.
Oh, yeah.
Oh no, you're breaking my heart if everybody just has their phone and that.
No,
like, there's something funny I remember. I don't know if my sister was in 7th grade or 8th grade or 9th grade. Older sister that you nailed down, right? Mm-hmm. She took a photography class and she had to get a camera. And I just remember, for whatever reason, it was the Pentax K1000.
Which was the most popular camera except for the Canon AE1.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That makes me so happy.
So this is where I become like an old fart because I'm like super like camera nerdism, and I'm just like, oh yeah, I know about that. And I still shoot with film and have a dark room too. So, oh yeah.
What, in your house?
No, it's
at the art center.
It's actually no. It's at my studio in Troy. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Wait, so you have a separate studio down here too, besides from the art center?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And YTK?
Yes.
All right, ytkphotography.com.
Yes.
Do you know Danny over here, Weathered Wood guy?
Yeah. Love him.
Yeah, I saw him, like half hour before I came over here to see you, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to podcast with Katherine. And he's like, oh, cool, awesome, YTK photography, YTK. And you want to talk about like how you started out defining yourself, like, I'm a creative, and it's hard to just, we need these these definitions of people. We need to fit them into their appropriate box. It was funny just being at Danny's right there. I met two of the other people that moved into his space, like twin pots or twin, I don't know, they're doing some kind of clay stuff over there. 2 other girls in the room, and I didn't know them. And Danny's like, hey girls, this is Doug. He's, I don't know how to define him really. And I'm like, oh, that's it. Like, thank you. Like he's like, it's really hard to define this guy because I started out as his accountant.
Oh,
like,
fun.
Yeah, like I just closed it when I started taking podcasting and other life stuff more seriously. I closed down. I had a hatemytaxes.com. Cute name for, like, I know accounting. I have that logical part of my brain too that just loves organizing things, and I'm like, okay, I need to know numbers and how to help people make money and small businesses. That's what I really like doing. So I had that for 4 years, and I just closed it down several months ago. So that was his first impression of me. He's like, Doug the accountant. Mm-hmm. And then as our relationship has evolved over the past 6, 7, 8 months, year, really, he's like, oh, you're not really an accountant.
Right.
And he's like, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to podcast right now. He's like, yeah, I don't really know what to make of you. And that's good. That's good. And I'm like, dude, you were a bank robber. Like, I don't know if you knew that about Danny.
I knew that there was like a little story in there.
Oh, he has a couple. He's on a podcast here where we talk about his bank robbing stories. So I'm allowed to say them.
He and I talked about doing like some video work at some point. So hopefully that will happen.
You should.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely want to. Because I love like doing those like really small projects that are a little more different than just like the standard stuff that we do like in the studio.
He made this table.
I would assume so.
He made a desk at my house
it's
too.
It's gorgeous.
It is gorgeous. I love this. This old wood. Now, what kind of project are you thinking? Like a wood related, like a digital marketing project?
It's going to be more creative than that.
Ooh.
Yeah, not the digital marketing stuff. Like, I think that it's really cool when you just like dive into like something else. But we'll see where that goes. I don't want to like spill too much.
All right, don't. Hey, but if you have any other ideas kicking around, I'm your guy. Like, I'm all in on stuff.
Have you ever met me? Like, I'm a creative.
We just met like half hour ago.
But that's the thing about me. Like, you sit down and you start like teasing out little ideas, and this is my brain. Okay, and then it just snowballs from there. So.
It feels so good sometimes that when I hear somebody explain something about me that I don't have to explain. Like, you just described yourself as, you just give me an idea, and then I promise you something's gonna happen. Yeah. Like, my brain is gonna come up with something.
Yeah.
and it's kind of a weird thing to say, right? Because it's kind of like self-praise in a way, but it's also a lie if you don't say the truth.
Well,
because it's a weird thing to say, like, hey, I can help with anything. Like, that's a hard sell, because people are like, what are you talking about? No, if you just start talking with me, and this is something funny that's happened with a lot of podcast guests, like a lot of them, whether the mic is on or off, is most of the time it's when it's off, because a lot of the times I find that the conversation goes so well, seemingly it goes well, that even when we turn this off, they want to stay and talk for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour sometimes. And we just start spitballing ideas. And like just last week, I gave her like the astronomer friend, I gave her like 2 or 3 good ideas. And she's like, that's a really good idea. That's a really, like for her, what to do. Like she just kind of spitballed like, hey, I was thinking about this. And then I was like, boom, 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 boom. She's like, whoa, boom, boom. And then she's like, and I was also thinking about this. And I was like, boom, 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 boom. It's like a little drug, isn't it?
I mean, that's why I like to hear people's stories, because like it helps to kind of create out of this like complete context that I've never even like touched before. So it's like, okay, like that's why I asked you, like, why did you start this? Because like that's really inspiring for me, is to kind of hear about your process too, you know. And that's like how I approach a lot of my, like if it's not a personal project for me, when I'm working with somebody, I really want to know their story, or what their goals are, or like where they got inspired by, where they're trying to, you know, just like all of that little nitty gritty. Because then I'm like, ooh, okay, you know. and then it just kind of snowballs into wherever it goes, which makes it fun.
What do you feel like? What are you like most cocky about? You're like, oh yeah, I can do that. I
try to keep myself like really humble.
Outwardly, but inside you have to have that confidence.
No, I mean...
Okay, I'm sorry, maybe cocky was the wrong word. I'm sorry.
I guess it's just... No, it's not the wrong word. It's just like I can't help the ideas and almost the verbal look that comes out, you know? But I think that's... but I don't know if that's like a cocky thing. I just think it's like what happens, you know? So if somebody's like, okay, I'm thinking about doing this, and this, and I'm like... you know, and I just keep describing it that way because that's just kind of how it happens.
It's all about delivery then.
Yeah, well, and I like to make it happen, you know, like I think one of the things that's like really, and my team members, like they, you know, very patient with me, but like I'll sit down with this insane idea and they're like, how in the hell are we going to do this? And I'm like, I don't know, but we're going to do it. And then we do, and they're like, wow, I can't believe we just did that. And I'm like, okay, moving on. Like, you know, the how is not the question for me. It's not the question that I can answer them. It just is part of like kind of what you were talking about with your bathroom. You had kind of a vision, you go in, you start to see it, and then you're like, all right, this is how it shifts. But you know that the goal is that it's going to be finished, you know?
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
I tried describing that to my girlfriend. I'm like, I can't tell you how it's going to exactly look when it's finished, like when we start the beginning, but I know it's going to look the way I wanted it to look.
Yeah.
Even though those details might not be there.
Or it may shift and be better, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's kind of the idea with this podcast, is like I need to sit down. I don't know what this is. Like you, that was your question.
Yeah.
That was your question. Like, what is this? It's I don't know. I kind of just am operating off of positive emotion, right? Like whatever gives me positive emotion internally, and also the kind that I see from other people. Like this is a cheating way to make friends, right? Like as you get a little bit older,
and
late 20s.
And you're not on social media.
Right. Like how else am I going to make friends? I've only been living here for 2 years. Like how do you make friends? Like that's such a complaint amongst anybody in their 30s. Like, and they move to a new place. It's like, I don't know how to make new friends. Yeah. Like, I hear this across the board. Everyone, like, I don't have any friends. Where are my new friends? Like that close kind of friend that we had as kids, right? Like, all my friends move away, or they have kids now and families, and I need new ones. And this is kind of a solution to that problem. Okay. It's like, oh, if I could just trap people
in a basement,
and get their contact and maybe have a good conversation. Like, I have made a friend.
Yeah.
And then what to do with that friend? I don't know, just keep talking, I guess, and then see what happens. But it's like...
Why do you like to talk to people?
I just need to know everything. Mm-hmm. Like, I think that's probably what it boils down to. But it goes back to the positive emotion. Like, but it's also a weird balance. Say, a perfect example, this past weekend... I didn't talk to anyone. Like, I need to be alone, too. Like, I need a lot of alone time. This past weekend, I talked to no one. Mm-hmm. I didn't look at my phone. I didn't leave the house. I mean, just besides my girlfriend and my dog, that was it. But it was just kind of like, I think a lot, and that makes me really happy too. But I need to know, once that happiness starts to dissipate, of the being alone time, the solitary confinement almost. It's not confinement, like I'm doing things and writing or drawing or whatever I'm doing.
Yeah. But you're not distracted.
Right.
Yeah.
That's probably what it is. I get to spend the time in my head, and then once I determine, like, okay, I've maximized the amount of joy being alone has provided, I need to go see people. So I'll just come downtown, or I'll prepare for a podcast, and I'm like, woo! Like on Monday I had a podcast, and that was the first person I talked to besides my girlfriend in 3 days. And that was the first interaction. I'm like, okay, let's see what happens like when, like, are you going to be like too energetic? Like, woo!
Yeah.
People! Humans, you're still here! I didn't see you for 2 days!
You're like Tom Hanks and Castaway.
Yes! Yeah. And honestly, that's funny you would say that, because my favorite movies are movies that, because I think about movies like that all the time, like a Castaway or Will Smith I Am Legend. Yeah. Like and there's
I can't watch it.
Well, I skip over the part where his dog dies. I am Legend.
I can't.
You can't watch the whole movie?
No.
Ooh, tell me why.
Oh, I don't like zombies.
Oh, well, okay. I'm with you. I don't like being scared. I'm not good at being scared. Ghosts terrify me. I've had real life, I know it's kind of like a weird thing to say, but I've had real life ghost encounters. It's not even that weird of a thing to say, but you feel like an idiot when you say it. You feel like a complete moron when you say that, because it's like...
Well...
Because it's impossible to relate to it.
Unless somebody gets it, you know?
Yes, but it's, you're automatic, even me saying it out loud, I'm like, did you really see go? Yeah, I did. I wrote it down. I described it for years, and I'm like, I definitely saw some shit.
Were you a kid when you saw it?
A teenage, late, yeah, that was like, the first time was probably 17 or 18. The one that really was like, oh, that was something. Like, that was something. And a few more after. I don't even want to get into this, because it gets clunky. And the thing is, it's kind of like talking about dreams, right? It's talking about things that I feel like when I have tried to talk about ghosts that I've encountered, whatever that is, or dreams, they lose their significance to me if I say them out loud.
Have you ever... Yeah, there's like... There's actually a Native American tribe, which I don't recall the name of, but they had like kind of a thing that if you said it out loud 3 times, it would leave you, like the memory or anything like that. So it was like good for expelling like negative situations. 3 times, that's it. You never talked about it again. But if it was a good thing and you kept saying it, then it would also leave you. So it's just kind of an interesting thing
that is wise.
Isn't it interesting?
That's lovely. All right, I try to learn like 800 things a day. That's gonna be one of my 800. That might be a top 5er. Now I might have to look up. That's the beauty of the internet, by the way. That's what I use it for. I get to go look up who this tribe was and see the story. Like, I love that. Okay, so you say it 3 times. I probably can
find it and send it to you, but yeah.
That'd be fun. Because now we're friends, because I trapped you, and we're drinking coffee and talking about ghosts. Yeah, it's, let me see, where do we go with? All right, we started with, you said you can't watch I Am Legend because of the zombies. And I said, yes, that there's problems with that. I don't like being scared.
I don't like scary movies at all.
I cannot watch them. I think it's too much. But I love that story, and I skip over the part where his dog dies because I don't like crying either. Well, I like crying, but not when it's because of a dog died. Defending him from zombies, like that's like heroic stuff.
I know.
Like heroic stuff makes me cry.
And especially because of the dog.
And because it's a dog, and I know my dog's going to die defending me from a bear someday. Like, I know that. That's for sure.
Okay.
And I'm going to cry. I always tell him, I'm like, I'm going to cry. Muncie, I love you.
Muncie?
I'm going to cry so much when I have to put you down. I say that kind of jokingly, but also you got to be prepared. Because it's for sure happening someday. So I just hope it's when he is defending me from a bear. And then I'll be like, all right, I finally have a reason to get a tattoo. So I Am Legend, I love those solo movies.
Yeah.
Like, there's something about somebody being alone that it strikes me. It strikes a chord in me. And I'm like, okay, whatever that means. I mean, you could get up Freudian about that, I'm sure, if you want. Like, why is Doug drawn to things that he loves being alone? Whatever that is. But then also Castaway, I think 2 of the most significant parts of Castaway and I Am Legend to me are when Tom Hanks had the volleyball, and he needed a friend, and you need people. You need Wilson. Yeah. That's how I feel when I emerge from those reclusive days, whether it's camping or just staying at the house for 2 days and being outside and reading books. Yeah. You know, I'm like, okay, where's my Wilson? I got to go find Wilson now. I need somebody to talk to. Same with I Am Legend. Will Smith, he's all by himself for a long time. And then he set up all the mannequins around New York City, if you remember. And he just would, like, go and interact with them and talk to them. And I'm like, yes, like, I understand that.
We're social creatures.
We are very social creatures. And
we all want a sense of belonging.
You need people so much. And then it gets perplexing why we're such dicks to each other, too. Like, don't you realize how much we need each other?
Ego.
That's for sure part of it. That's for sure. It's the lack of introspection and bigger picture, I think. Is just like, no, I need to win. I need this. It's about me.
And we're human. And we're flawed. And sometimes shit pops up. And you're just like, oh. But yeah.
Yeah. So I picture that. Like, that's kind of I live in that world where I need to be completely quiet by myself. Like, I'll go for walks 3 or 4 times a week with my dog in the morning. That's how I love starting my days. And we go for hikes. No phone. No nothing. It's just me and the dog and my thoughts. And it includes during the winter, especially during the winter when there's like 3 feet of snow out there and there's no one else out on the trails ever. I mean, it's hardly ever anybody out there now, but like it's when it's really quiet and eerie and I can really think.
Yeah.
But then later that day, I'll sit down and talk with someone for 2 hours and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, who am I? Am I an introvert? Am I an extrovert? I don't know.
Yeah.
But watching like movies like Castaway and I Am Legend, I'm like, I'm somewhere like that. I don't know. Like, I need people for sure, but boy, I could kind of function on my own for a little while. But it gets to that bigger picture of what you said. We're social creatures.
Yeah. But I don't think enough people give themselves, like, space, to, like, be alone. I think that a lot of people... and I say this, like, for my own personal, like, experience. Like, being alone has been, like, something that I've had to get really comfortable with,
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So what do you do to be alone?
Now? Mm-hmm. It's just a lot of like spending time with my work really, which is not necessarily alone, but it's like taking that time like to work or taking that time to go on walks or go to museums or, you know what I mean? And I love doing that by myself. Like my favorite thing is to go to New York City and just hit up every single museum and go visit all of my historic paintings and just be like, hey friend,
You do that by yourself?
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's like one of my favorite things.
Oh, I love when I meet people that make me feel like I'm not crazy. I went to Italy by myself.
Oh, that's awesome.
And when I was 21. That was so dope. 2 weeks by myself, no plans. Just show up and just start walking around and see what I find. And when I go to the movies, I don't really feel like I feel like movies are a waste of time.
I like going to the movies by myself.
Oh, I always when I still went to movies, just because I'm just like, it's a waste of time. Like I value time more the little bit older I get. Mm-hmm. But when I would go to the movies, 3 out of 4 times I'd be by myself.
Yeah.
And I loved it.
Well, you're kind of by yourself anyways. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think the only kind of movie you should have somebody with you is a comedy. It's kind of weird to laugh by yourself. Like, laughing is such like a social... You need someone else around to laugh. Like, it's like kind of a social cue.
You don't laugh at yourself when you're by yourself?
Oh, no, I definitely do. I definitely do. But it's a different kind of laugh when somebody's there. Like, you're reacting with someone.
Yeah.
And especially when it's a specific someone. Like, I have some best friends that my laugh sounds different with them, like, individually, respectively. Like, one of my best friends, Jesse, him and I, when we start laughing, it's, like, sounds different. Like, I only laugh sounding like that with him because we're kind of like doing the chimpanzee monkey thing. Like, ho, ho, ho. Like, we laugh, like, mimicking each other almost. We're crying in tears. We always cry laughing. And then, I got other friends, like Brock, and I laugh a different way with him.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I love laughing. I love laughing. But it's kind of weird to know this stat about yourself. And that I have tried watching comedies by myself, say at home. Mm-hmm. I've never gone to a theater to see a comedy by myself. And I'm like, this isn't as fulfilling. Mm-hmm. Like, you need someone there to laugh with. But museums and hikes and Italy and different, like, dramatic movies
Yeah.
or fantastical Lord of the Rings, Hobbit type movies. Like, sit me all day where I could get into the fantasy zone and just play with what I'm seeing on my own without any outside interaction. Like, hey, like somebody elbowing you, or hey, give me some popcorn, or whatever it is. It's like, no, you took me out of it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like being taken out of things. Like, so I'm very happy that, like, I think I know what you're saying about, you just made me really want to go down to New York City and go to museums by myself now. Which is something I did in D.C.
Oh, yeah, there's so many good
When I
ones.
visited D.C., I spent
2
2 days walking around, going to all these museums by myself.
Yeah.
Oh. See, damn it. Now I want to go do that. So it's weird to find, like, we could be museum partners, but it would kind of defeat the whole
We would
purpose.
have to go, but you have to take this wing and I would take that wing, and like we'll have lunch and then we'll like
Yeah, we could make that work.
see you later.
Like, what did you see and what did you think? Like, I don't know. I've never sat there and really tried to discuss.
I don't, and that's what I like about going to the museums kind of by myself, is like I just get to like experience it, and I don't need to report it or even discuss it with anybody else. It's just literally for me, you know. So.
Damn it! I want to go to a museum now. So this is fun. Tell me more.
Later.
Tell me more, Katherine. How much time did you have for this? I always forget.
I did not.
All right, good. So until if you give me like a code word, if you say, I don't know, mushroom or something, then I'll be like, okay, that's like a 2-minute warning, or she's bored, or am I just rambling? Here's the problem with podcasting with somebody.
I was gonna say, is somebody gonna sit here and listen to this for 2 hours? Or
Well, that's the thing is, certain people might.
Yeah.
There are certain, and that's part of the problem with this podcast is there's no theme, and that can confuse people because I have no theme. You can't fit me anywhere because that's kind of reflected in the podcast. It's just like, what are these people going to talk about? I don't know. I just bring
undefined stories.
Right, exactly, and then that's the beauty. This is undefinably fun for me, and right now, this very moment, sitting in there and talking with you, because we don't know where it's going to go. And what are we even talking about? We're just talking about ideas, right?
We're rambling. We're getting to know each other. But
Right.
we're also like, da-da. Yeah.
And then I recognize my personal problem is when I have these kinds of podcasts with people that I just like, okay, I got a friend and she's saying some really interesting things. It's thought-provoking. I start really rambling.
Yeah, that's good though, I'm sure.
I really do. And I try to reel it in.
Have you ever like interviewed somebody that you did not jive with, and it was just kind of like, "Hi, so."
Once.
Yeah.
One time, but personally we got along. But it was somebody actually, coincidentally or ironically, somebody at the New York State Museum.
Oh, okay.
Who was just brought in, like, we were just talking history.
Yeah.
Right. So it's hard to talk history with someone who's just like kind of spewing facts, right? Expects questions, and my job is to...
Oh, so it's an interview instead of a conversation.
Yes, exactly,
Gotcha.
exactly. Which for me is what the world needs. I know my world of my crazy brain needs is conversations. I don't like being spoon-fed and being said, this is what this is a theme, this is an interview, you act this way, I act that way, we're putting on a show, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is a show. I can't do shows. Like, I have to be as authentic as I can, even if I'm rambling.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the funny thing is more people listen to these than you would think.
I would assume so.
Like,
I mean, it's pretty fascinating, especially if you kind of know somebody, or you hear like a little. You're like, oh, I want to see what this is all about, you know. But that's cool.
yeah. Do you draw?
I do.
Are you left-handed?
Right-handed.
Yeah, I did see you do something with your right-handed over there. You're right-handed over there. What kind of stuff do you draw?
Doodles. I mean, I haven't really I sketch a lot of just my ideas, so it's just a lot of constant sketching, but I wouldn't say that it's anything in final form, you know. It's more just kind of random notes, but yeah, always something.
Have you ever taken a sketch to a painting?
Yeah, painting isn't really my medium. It's beautiful, but I've painted a lot less than I've drawn or made other things. There's just something about maybe it's just I don't know enough technique, but it just doesn't pull me into it. I love paintings,
Yeah,
but it's just not my form of creative expression.
I bought a canvas like 2 months ago and it's still sitting there. But that was kind of by design because I don't know what to put on it. Mm-hmm. So I've just been sketching 1 or 2 things a week and throwing around these ideas and being like, okay, when am I going to have the courage to actually paint? Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know. So I was hoping you said, yes, you were a painter and you could say, this is what I do and this is how it's done. That's okay.
Yeah.
See, and then once again, I'm going to find out what you just said. Like, you found out it's not your medium. It's not your...
Yeah.
Maybe I'll find that out, which I need to know. Because then I could just like, okay, I don't need to waste a lot of time on this.
I mean, like, if I needed to create a painting for, like, a bigger project, I could. Because, like, it would already have been, like, in my mind. But I so admire people who can just sit there and, like, they can literally, like... I can't do that, you know? So I think that's super, super fascinating. But yeah, that's not me.
So do you have any pictures of landscapes? Like since we are redecorating our house, one of our walls is green and I want to put like a big print of the Adirondacks or something on it, like green trees and the mountains of the Adirondacks. Do you sell anything like that?
I don't, but there are like so many great photographers in this area who do. I don't really shoot like landscapes like for myself. Like I'll usually, like when I do creative work for myself, it really is like portraiture based around kind of that historical classic kind of thing. But there are so many amazing photographers in the area that you can...
Good, you're gonna tell me their names because I need that. That's what that room is missing, which is something I didn't think of until I got another part of the room done, and I'm like, okay, I can look at you now. What do you need?
See, the difference between like for me and another photographer is I would like, this is how I create, like that would be like like we should go on a hike with your girlfriend and make like a portrait of you guys like in that scene. That's what I would do, which is different than just buying like a still life of somebody there. But I like things that are like a lot more personalized and like, this is the mountain that you always go up with. What was your dog's name again?
Muncie.
So it's like, this is where you and Muncie hike, and like that's where I would want to go. But like that's how I get inspired by people and their stories. So even though you might not want like a mushy like portrait with you and your girl,
I don't.
Right, but could you imagine like this gorgeous landscape with you guys like kind of silhouetted, or you and Muncie? You know what I mean? So that's kind of how I would create.
I don't know.
But if you wanted a good landscape, I'll give you some names.
Yes, please, because as much as I love my girlfriend and me and the dog, I love nature and landscapes more.
Right.
Like I'd rather.
See, and for me, it's a beautiful landscape, but I want to pop some people in there always. Like I like, but that's probably also you in that whole space. You want that removed space between like yourself and people. So that makes sense why you like just the landscape. For me, I love like I will see gorgeous landscapes and I'm like, and a person should go right here. You know? Yeah.
This is funny. You would describe it like that just because 2 weeks ago I did a sketch of beautiful building we used to live in on 2nd Street, several blocks that way. Beautiful, beautiful house. And I did a sketch of it and gave it to our landlord when they were coming over for dinner at our new house. And I said, hey, I drew this for you. Mm-hmm. And while I was drawing it, I almost put like a silhouette and a picture of them like in the window. Like you guys are in there. I did. I drew the outline and I was like, no, it's about the building.
Right.
I was like, the people are implied.
But it depends on the story. You know what I mean? And like, I totally get that.
It depends on the story. Mm-hmm. Depends on the story. So the story, it depends how you want to sell. Okay.
Well, the way that I look at it is if you just have like a naked like landscape, right? Trees, mountains, beauty, right? Any person can insert themselves there. It's about the space. It's about that, that existing on its own. When you have like the suggestion of a person or, people in it, it becomes about their relationship with that space. It's their story, their interaction with it. So both are like important. It just depends on which way you want to go,
Good. More thoughts you just gave me. Good. And it makes beautiful sense. It makes sense.
And neither is wrong.
Right.
It's just
that's
different.
That's why it's kind of beautiful. It's just like, oh, what do you feel like doing?
Yeah.
And you need people in your stuff, right? Is that kind of what
I love having people. Like, I like it because for me, it's about the people. It's not necessarily about... So, like, for me, when I go on vacation, I don't bring my camera because I exist with the space. I don't need a tool to document that. Like, yeah, I have my iPhone, but you know what I mean? I'm not I'm not on, if you will. Like when I have a camera, I'm on. So for me, when I'm just existing, it's just about being present. When I am creating and, you know, doing like shoots with people, it's really about their story and me manifesting that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that's what you're there for, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of, even people that might not understand the artistic side of that, like just like, well, I'm imagining you do a lot of wedding photography.
Yeah.
Okay.
But there's a difference between, like, so for me, like, there's a difference between choosing this location because it's convenient or choosing this location because it has significance to you. For me, I would pick the significance over anything else, even convenience, you know, because it's going to matter so much more.
And that's why you went to the, hey, you, your girlfriend, or you and your dog
Yeah.
hiking on this trail that you always hike. Yeah. Yeah, I get that. And that's an easy sell, right? Like even people just like, hey, we need a wedding photographer, right? Like, but then if you could deliver something like that, like, hey, this is more than just taking pictures.
It's got to be the right person. Like, it's got to be the right couple who is really looking for someone to do that for them. Because some people just want a photographer. Some people, you know, just want a particular style. Some people are just looking for a particular, like, price. You know, so it's really about explaining the process and finding someone who really wants to have that kind of experience.
Do you get sad when somebody's resistant?
Not at all, because it's not a good fit, you know, and there's so many great photographers out there. So it's just kind of like, if we're not hitting it off the bat, like, and they're not like loving that, that's not going to be a great experience for me or really for them. So I'm really happy when people follow up and they're like, you know, we really found somebody that we love. I'm like, that is amazing. And I truly do feel that way because, you know, for me, when I get somebody who sits down in our studio and is like obsessed and gushing and like so excited to work with us, it's not work, you know, it just makes for an incredible day. And I already, like, again, it's that whoosh of like ideas. So it's a little different.
Yeah, you feel like they're giving you something.
Right. Like I always explain the process of like for weddings in specific, like my couples are really like my muses. So when I talk to them, I want to know all about like their love story or their proposal or what they do for fun or why did they choose to get married where they are, and you know, what are the family dynamics, who's really important to them, who introduced them, like all of these questions, because when I show up, I have a sense of their style. I know what's important to them. I know, like, for example, today, it's a 3-year anniversary for one of our favorite bride and grooms. And her grandmother hand crocheted 150 doilies for each table setting. And I knew this going into it, and I knew how important that was to her. So, you know, I grabbed grandma and I said, okay, hold this. And I take a picture of just her hands with it. But you know what I mean? So it's like, that's something that's so intimate that maybe somebody looking at it wouldn't understand the context, but the fact that she spent all that time making these beautiful doilies, you know, like that's the magic there, you know, and it might not matter to anybody else in the world, but to her, it matters, you know, and now she has that forever. So that's like kind of the process. It's a little, yeah.
Yeah, because that idea didn't exist until you came along and got the story, and are like, oh, your grandma hand crocheted all of this for people. That is crazy.
Yeah. She
loves you. That's a sign of love. We have to capture that.
Right.
We have to capture that on film. But it's like, yeah, it seemed obvious to you, I bet, right?
Oh,
so
sure.
like, oh yeah, we're doing this. But to them, they were probably like, what?
Yeah.
Or other people like, or another photographer even would be like, I wouldn't even have thought of that. To you, it's like, no, this is the story.
Yeah, it's like little things like that I think are just like more personalized, you know, for me. And that's what makes it really special. It's just kind of like really knowing someone. So again, like if you like meet with somebody and again, it's like, you know, they're looking for something and this is it's just like, okay. So.
Did you ever have anyone break up when you were going to take them on a photo shoot? Like if they started fighting and
No.
like, this is terrible.
No.
Oh, so that'd be so dope. That'd be so great if you had that story.
No.
Not because of you, but because like you run into like barking couples every now and again, right? Like I ran into one the other day at the grocery store fighting in the parking lot, and I was somehow literally in the middle of them. I started walking, the husband was up here, the wife's back here, and I was walking in the middle of them. We're all walking together, And I had no choice but to comment. I was like, did I find myself in the middle of a husband and wife fight? And then that kind of diffused the situation a bit. I kind of felt responsible for it. But it's just a funny question to ask because, a fair amount of couples start fighting when they have to, like, do something, a project together or something, or, like, cleaning the house or whatever it is. Like, no, whatever it is. So I like to just imagine that somebody's maybe it'd just be a funny scene in a movie. They go out with this nice photographer who plans this whole beautiful day, all these beautiful pictures and poses, and
I'm sure
then
it happens to somebody.
Yeah,
I'm sure it's happened.
That had to have happened.
Yeah,
and then
I'm
they
sure.
just break the huge fight in front of the photographer, and then they call off the wedding.
I would cry. Like, I would cry. I don't know. I mean, we're really lucky. Like, most of our couples have been together, like, for a really long time. Like, I think the average, like, time period that people have been together is probably about 7 years for our couples.
Whoa.
Yeah. So they've been together for, like, and that's, like, a normal. Like, if we get somebody who's been together for, like, 2 years, like, that's like a little not as typical, but like they're all amazing and like just super in love, and I don't know, I get gushy about it.
You should.
Yeah,
it's a fun way to keep score because you did affect their lives. You, like, of course, maybe it was just that one moment or something, but you were gathering information and you wanted to help you were helping their relationship, like, through photography, and just like, oh, somebody cares. Like, somebody besides us cares. This is important. Yeah, I keep score like that too, and this is how I keep score. Every wedding that I've been in, like the groom part, they've all divorced.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. We shouldn't do that anymore.
No, I'd stop doing it.
Like, you need to say no. You're washing your hair that day.
I just don't go to weddings anymore.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, because ones I've gone to, I think that is more like, a third of them probably are divorced too, but 100%, and I only mean 3 times.
Yeah.
But a sample size of 3 weddings, and I'm in on, those are the only 3 I've ever been in.
Yeah.
And then they all divorce within 2 years. It's like, did I have a role here?
No.
I know I didn't, but it's just like you with the photography, though. It's like, you're keeping score, but we don't even know why, right? It's just like, oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
I just think it's an interesting, like, fact, like, when we talk to people about how long they've been together, that it's just, like, usually longer than 5 years, like, is the average, and about 7 is really kind of where we hit the middle. But I love that, and I love hearing how everybody's a little different, and each little facet that just makes it, like, uniquely theirs. So
I'm going to open up a competition, a competing photograph studio to compete with yours. You know what my angle's going to be?
What is it?
I'm going to take pictures of the divorce. Like them signing at the table with the lawyers, who gets
fun
what.
With that, dude.
Like, how crazy would that be? Mm-hmm. Do you think anybody would pay for that?
I have no idea.
But once again, I think
this is part of your divorce settlement. We also have this photographer here to document this. It's just like a full circle. I mean,
once again, I often think of things in terms of movie scenes and what would make me laugh, or what. I mean, it's not like that's implausible.
Yeah.
Like, but if you heard that, you'd be like, "That's crazy. I want to do it." like, oh, here's, like, if you had a picture, a collage.
Yeah.
Like, oh, here's our relationship. Blah 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 blah. Here's, we're born here, or we met here. This is our first date. Here's the wedding. Here's the kids. Here's our vacation here, and here's the divorce. Mm-hmm. Like, put a bookend on it. It won't work, would it?
No. And I wish more people were, like, a lot better to each other when they dissolve their marriage.
Oh, dude.
Yeah. Because, like, I mean, think about it, too, like, with people who have children. And, I mean, I'm not married. I don't have children. I have no idea what that was.
Outside observer.
Yeah. But it's just, like, I wish people were better to each other, And I get it. It's, like, each circumstance is different, but I love, like, the couples that I have, like, friends of mine who I've seen whose, like, relationships have gone different paths, and they've maintained, like, a friendship and good communication. It's not like they're best friends, but it's like, this is a person that you have a child with, and, like, to watch them, like, co-parent, like, that to me is, like, it's so, so good. I'm like, oh, I wish everybody had the ability to do that.
Well, it's what you said earlier about ego, right? Like, that's what it is. It becomes what can I get? Because instead of looking inward, you want to look out. We want to lash outward.
Truthfully, I think that that's, like, the root of all problems, is an inability to have the inner reflection. I think that that's really where everything
But
starts.
don't we all know this? Like, didn't your mom? When was the first time you heard like, well, just put yourself in their shoes?
Yeah, but empathy and vulnerability. Now we're getting into a whole other topic.
Do it.
But empathy and vulnerability are like a whole other level to that, And it's like it's very hard to be like vulnerable and like open about yourself, like especially when you're in your like worst moment, and to realize that and to be very like vocal about it. Other people are not necessarily able to do the same thing. Like that's where wisdom, I think, comes in and experience. And, it's Brene Brown, man. Brene Brown.
What is that?
Brene Brown she's a shame researcher, and she deals with shame and vulnerability. And she like interviews hundreds of people, and she writes about our experience with shame and vulnerability, and like why like people kind of like have the behavioral issues that they do. Not behavioral issues, I guess is probably not the appropriate way to say it, but she just talks about like our society and how we experience different things and how we process it, and it's really fascinating.
Is she a psychologist?
She's got her like PhD, I don't know her exact credentials, but PhD, master's in social work, and she's out of Texas, so she's got this like sassy little Texan thing going on. But she's really, really great to listen to, and she's really great. Her books are all awesome. So I really like her, obviously.
Right.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
That kind of topic. We can go on this kind of topic all the time, because that is it's kind of something I've discovered accidentally about myself, is that from day one, my earliest memories, I'm just looking around to see what people are doing, why they're doing it, how they're reacting to things, like as a child.
Yeah.
Like really, really like, okay, this person reacted to this person that way, and I didn't like it, so let me make sure I don't do that. Like,
right.
I started really learning this stuff really early on. I'm like, oh, it's really, life gets better, and you're going to make more friends the better you are at handling things that suck. Yeah. Like a divorce. Like, if you could show that you can handle that, like, because it sucks. Like, it is at your worst, right?
Yeah.
I would guess. I don't know. How do people that have been divorced, like, 5 times, like...
Don't know.
I got an uncle or two.
Sounds like a podcast goal. You want to get it out there, then.
Right.
Those are some good interviews.
Those would be. Because I don't know, how many more times can you do? I don't know. I have an uncle who swore he would never remarry. He's like, this is my 3rd one and final one. If this doesn't work, I'm done. Nope. He got divorced. 3 months later, he got remarried again, number 4. I'm like, dude.
3 months, wow.
Dude.
That's
like,
fast.
Well, it is fast, but I don't know. I kind of get that too. Like, I kind of tell my girlfriend, I'm like, well, I don't think I told her this yet, but I had this thought recently. I'm like, hey, if you died, like, I mean, you're gonna die, but if you died before me, like soon, like tomorrow or something, I was thinking to myself, I was like, I don't think I could be alone. Like, I'd probably start dating, whatever that means, like really quick, probably like a month or 2. It's that alone thing. Like, I need social creatures, and I really need to be around people. I need to have that person. But then you think, like, this thought popped in my head because we have a relative who, my uncle, his wife died, and she died about a year ago, 9 months or so, and then he just started dating, and like people are like kind of mad about that. Like, you hear about people getting mad about that, like, oh, you started dating too soon.
It's not for them.
And I'm like, wait. And then I start thinking about that.
But it's not for them to say.
Exactly.
I mean, you can, like, you said your uncle got married 3 months, and I'm like, ooh. Just because of, like, the time period, you're like, okay, no judgment, like, but 3 months is fast for anybody.
But he's a crazy person, so...
it is
in other ways.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. But I think that, like, it's so much easier for us to kind of look from an outsider's perspective and assume what we would need in that moment. But you have no idea. You have no idea what somebody's experiencing. And you have no idea, especially when I think somebody comes out of, like, tremendous grief, like if the loss of a spouse or a loved one, like, that grief is indescribable, and it's so unique for each person that you have no idea what's going to help them through it, and maybe that person is, so it's like
it's putting yourself in their shoes and just like not like,
but
okay,
tapping the brakes a little bit more though
on the judgment brakes, like, hey, wait.
And it's so easy to do,
and that's what, because I grew up with that too, like, some relative's wife or husband would die, and then they would start dating someone else, and then like the kids would get mad, like, how could you date someone so quick? Mom's only been dead for 6 months. It's like, why is there a time label on that? So that got me thinking about myself. I'm like, wait, I am so emotionally needy, maybe. Like if she died, like I gotta tell her this, and maybe I'll just make her listen to this portion, whatever part we're at. I'll be like, hey, if you died, I gotta let your family know. Like, I'd be dating really, really quick. Because I need someone there. Like, I would just feel so alone so quick. Like, I like voluntary aloneness.
Yeah, sure.
But to really be alone, it's terrifying to me.
But I think it's a really interesting thing to try to, like, work through, you know, to really be okay with just yourself, you know, and to be okay with that space. Like, it's something that I think is really a challenge for a lot of people. It's something that I've, like, worked through, you know, for myself, too. And it's not easy, because then you get to, like, look at all of the parts of yourself that you might not like that much, you know, and you're just like,
there's a lot of them,
you know, but that's the thing, is like, when you have a partner, like, there's this little bit of a distraction that keeps you away from that inner reflection, you know. Not saying that you need to do that.
I have a lot of,
but I think that that's like a really, like, it's a really hard thing to do, but I think that when you do it, it's like revelations upon revelations of yourself, and then you're just like, you're really self-aware, you know, you're like, all right, okay, you know.
See, when it's voluntary, we're talking about voluntary
versus not,
like, do you know one of the main reason, I shouldn't say the main reason, because I have moral and ethical beliefs that supersede the law, but the main reason, let's just say, because it's kind of funny to say, that I don't murder anyone, is because I'm afraid of solitary confinement. Like, that would eat me up, and the involuntary, you're alone and somebody else is making you be alone. That's why I kind of like Castaway and I Am Legend kind of also terrified me in that, like, whoa, these guys are alone and they don't want to be alone. And it's kind of the thing with solitary confinement. When I watch movies or read books, say like stuff that really happens, like, wow, like what happened in communist Russia and socialists and Nazi Germany, like, where they really just would lock people away for years and years. And we've done it here. Like, there was a case several years ago. This I think it was like 21 or something. This kid, they kind of just put him in solitary confinement, and kind of the paperwork kind of forgot about him. Like he was there for like 6 years. And they realized, this was like, and it was for something so innocuous. It was something like petty theft, like something silly. But the paperwork got messed up, and they forgot about him. And I'm like, that is the most terrifying thing, because like, at what point does it stop becoming introspective? The value of it, right? Like, to what you're saying, like, there's so much value to be found by yourself, but if someone else's, you have to do it voluntarily. And if somebody's just locking you away like that, and like they did in Russia and Germany, and it still happens here in our prison system, it's like, God, that's the most terrifying thing in the world to me. You want to talk about like ghosts and zombies and scaring you? Like, that too terrifies me. And so I don't know. Yeah, I just gotta tell you, Carlene, if you die, I'm definitely gonna be with someone really quick. And your family can't judge me, because I'm so needy. I'm so emotionally needy. I realized that with the dog. We only got the dog like a year or so ago.
What kind of dog?
He's a Shiba Inu.
Oh, okay.
And he's a cool little 24-pound, like, muscular wolf. They're actually the most, genetically, they're the most, they're the closest relatives to wild wolves than any other dog breed. They're a very, very old Japanese breed. They date back maybe like 10,000 years. They've had like pictures of them and descriptions of them. So they're really, really cool. And he's a badass little guy. And that love, like right now, just talking about him, I'm like, I miss him so much. I didn't know I'd be so, and we go for these hikes. And he just looks up at me, turns around, looks at me, and I give him some commands, and he comes in heels and sits, and he jumps up on rocks and like looks at me. I'm like, oh no, like, I need you. Like, I miss him. It sucks. I'm like, God damn it, I'm so emotionally needy. And he's the same way too. He's so needy. Like, he needs to be pet all the time. And typically, what's kind of strange is that breed is not supposed to be needy. Oh, really? Interesting. Yeah, they're supposed to be very individualistic. Which I would think, you know, based on what you like described of the breed, like, that would make a lot of sense. But that's really cool that he's his own guy. He just wants to show his belly all the time. And that's the thing we've been teaching him is, saying belly.
Yeah.
Belly, so he can roll over and show his belly and he gets pet. But he just wants to be pet and near us all the time. And I'm like, shit. Like, something, like, I get it, man. Like, I get it. I'm needy on him. He's needy on me. I'm needy on my girlfriend. But it's all like, I gotta turn it off a little bit.
Yeah.
I could turn my girlfriend off more than I can the dog. Like, that's, I don't know. Because, like, maybe, I don't know. It's a different kind of, like, I don't have to talk.
Yeah, sure.
Like, so many times I'll just have the headphones on. You talk about, like, you need to distance yourself and be introspective, but instead of just having someone around all the time, I do that at home to my girlfriend's just chagrin, I guess that's the right word, is I'll just have my headphones on, and I'm like, all right, you're not going to talk to me for like 3 or 4 hours, and I'm going to be here walking around doing stuff, but I got to be alone for 3 or 4 hours, and I don't have to say that to the dog. Like, he doesn't try to talk. And I'm like, oh, and when she'll start talking, I could tell her, I could see that she's like fighting it. I'm like, what? What? And I try to be nice about it, but I'm like, no, I have to be alone. You don't understand how much I need this. So that's it. Like, I don't know. You have me thinking, just when I'm connecting a couple things here with this hurricane coming down there. I experienced a hurricane in Florida when I lived in Florida for about 10 years, and I moved there down there by myself. I had cousins and stuff, but I lived by myself, really. And I experienced that first hurricane when I lived in Florida for 7 months. The hurricane showed up, and I experienced the hurricane by myself, and it was crazy. I learned a lot about myself. I was like, whoa, like, Mother Nature's coming to kill me, and how am I reacting? And I'm scared, but I'm by myself. Like, if something happens, is someone going to find out?
Nobody will know. Yeah.
Yeah, like, it was one of those moments. I don't know. I don't really have anything to expound on there. But, yeah. I don't mind being alone. But I also love podcasting so much.
When did you do your first podcast?
With a person?
Yeah. Or by yourself, or like...
Well, that's the thing. I started...
It's interesting because you're so, like, anti, like, social media, you know, but, like, it's not something that really drew you in, but this is yet really connecting with a broader spectrum of people, like...
And then that's part where I really suck, is the promoting part. Is like, okay, it's weird for me to want to promote myself. Which is why, like, I don't know, between all the platforms, this might get 100 listens or something right now. Yeah. Which you would think maybe more, but I don't know. I kind of like the beginnings, because right now it's still uncertain. I'm like, I only really started to take this, like, pour some gasoline on the fire maybe 2-3 months ago, and since then viewership has quadrupled. You know, went from like 25 to like 100. I'm like, oh, is this how it works? So it's been done with a little bit of help with social media. Like, I technically have an Instagram account. Oh, but it's so tough for me to sign it. So tough, because it's unfulfilling. So it's about using tools, right? This is the way I see it. I answer questions long. To your question, because you told me you're interested in why people do things. So I'm going to give you as good an answer as I can. So when I first discovered the internet and social media, like late 90s, early 2000s, mid 2000s for social media, really, it was, I don't know what to do with this tool. I don't, like, is this a tool? Is this entertainment? Is this just people talking about cats and showing what they ate and where they're going, what time they went to the gym? Like, I don't understand this, so I can't deal with that right now. Like, I don't know. I just need to observe this for a while. Because to me, it feels like a waste of time. But I need to observe it to see if it really is or not. And the more I observed it, I was like, this seems like a waste of time. This seems like a waste of time. This seems like a waste of time. Even for me, I didn't really understand YouTube until maybe 4 years ago. Because I just thought it was entertainment. Like, I didn't know how much educational and material was out there. How much information. Like, and maybe 4 or 5 years ago, it wasn't that way anyway. Maybe for me, it wasn't. I just still thought anytime I saw YouTube, it was like maybe music video or the cat videos or just something humorous that would make people laugh and grab their attention. I didn't realize that it could be a tool that I can use to do what I really like. And what I really like is connecting to people, like a direct connection. Because I find through the social media and YouTube and the internet overall, is they're just very superficial connections. They're not really connections, and they leave me with an empty feeling. And they still do. Like when I go on my Instagram really quick, like maybe 4 minutes a week I dedicate to it. Like just put this damn post up about this podcast and get me away. I can't do it. So it feels so superficial, and I don't like feeling superficial.
Yep.
So I needed to discover but I knew it was important to be part of this. Like I didn't want to be the person that knew nothing about social media, knew nothing about the value of YouTube and stuff. And then I started discovering podcasts like 3-4 years ago. I was like, what? People just sit down and talk for an hour? And then I was like, okay, this is cool. This is something to listen, and it could be informative and educational. And like, what? I get to learn stuff this way? Like, I didn't have to go to college or the library for this, like, learning about astrophysics. Like, I can just learn that on my own, or whatever it is. I learn a lot of weird shit. And I was like, okay, I like this tool now. But I still don't like the superficiality of it. And all right, but I should probably use it. Let me merge these two things and see what I could do. Because I saw the podcast, I'm like, oh, you are actually having a real connection with someone.
Yeah.
And if you use it right, like I use YouTube and all that stuff and listening to podcasts for education. Like so very little of me needs to be entertained. Like I'm just entertained by everything. So I don't need to go and see something funny very often, or I mean, I do. I love laughing, but I laugh more when I'm talking to a friend or meeting a new person. And so this is way more stimulating for me, and I need that to survive. I think I'll just like wither up and die. So I think that I had to get over that initial resistance to your question is like, all right, my natural reluctance to these mediums is I got to overcome that if I want to enjoy the experience of connecting and creating something. This conversation didn't exist before you and I sat down, and what you're going to say 2 minutes from now didn't exist. So it's like really appreciating that it's a creative platform, and I still don't get that with like Instagram or something. Like, but so because like it's just pictures and sometimes information, but most of the time it's just meh.
It's a lot of stimulation.
Right. And I see what it's to your point, stimulation. I see what it is. It's about the likes. Like that's the whole purpose of it. And I like to be resilient to that. I like to think I am, because I don't want to get addicted to likes, because that's one of my observations of 15 years is people love likes and views and good comments, and they respond even to the negative ones. Like when people put up negative I said this like a year ago. I was like, I'll know when I'm on the right path when I start getting negative YouTube comments. Like I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna eat that up. But I also know I gotta ignore a lot of them.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I kind of answered your question, but that was the thought was. Also, I just, I need to explore. I'm a natural explorer. So I was like, okay, turn on the microphone, start talking by yourself, see what you come up with, see what this unexplored territory is that you've never done. There's no real blueprint to it, because there's no real blueprint to you, to Katherine. Like, you've only lived this one life. This is your first time living. This is my first time living. There's no blueprint. Let's see what you can do, right? So that's essentially it is just turn on the mic, turn on the camera, and see what happens. And yeah, like getting over that social media and stuff. It's just, meh.
I'm the same. I'm not a big social media person at all.
How does it make you feel?
I think that there's like a lot of pressure to use it as a tool for your business. And I think that it's really great for a lot of people. But again, it kind of goes to like the categories thing where I'm just like, I don't know where I fit. And then I'm just kind of like, fuck it, I'm going to do my own thing. And just like, because like for me, I don't really care about the likes. For me, it's about connecting with the audience who's going to appreciate like the work that I do, and be like, oh, that matters to her. That matters to me. Great. So like, that's really the only thing that I like hope to use it for. Cause like, some people have like, I have a bajillion followers. I'm like, awesome. I don't, and that's not a goal really for me. It's more to just have it as a platform and be part of it, but not necessarily have that be what drives everything else.
It's more personal.
Yeah.
It's not extraneous. It's something inside you that says, because if you use it like a tool, like that, like what you just said, it can be fulfilling.
Yeah.
And I know it will be more fulfilling to have more followers and more views.
Just like outsource it to somebody else. Be like, here, you deal with this.
And then let
me do what I do.
that's actually the plan. I'm like, okay, what kind of intern or friend do I have that can do this and like, put up some editing and enjoys that
and is into it, like because like one of the girls in my studio, she absolutely loves like social media platforms, like it's her thing to come up with stuff, and I'm like, great, this is gonna be your job, you're gonna do this, because it's not the best use of my time. And as you said, like you spend 4 minutes a week.
Oh yeah.
See, like for me, I spend a lot more time on it, and it's but especially it's like that balance, and that's what so many people are like, oh, I'm disconnecting. And I do that all the time. I'm like, bye social media, bye email. Like I just need to like do this, and this, and like for me, a big like disconnect from all of that is like, I got to get in the kitchen and I got to cook dinner. So
yeah, it's doing something with your hands, and you feel different.
Yeah.
Right. When you decide to make that commitment to, I'm going to disconnect even just for the rest of the night. Yeah. Like, all right, it's 7:00. No more of this crap. I'm gonna go make dinner. And you're like, ooh, I feel like you feel untethered almost, right? Yeah. Like even just me not being social media, just knowing my phone is off, or I don't even know where my phone is. Like,
and it doesn't matter.
It doesn't. It's just like, okay, this is the real world again. You said it. You mentioned present, being present, and it's like, okay, this is the real world again.
Yeah.
And it's not this, which everywhere you go, folks do that, and. I feel when I'm out with someone, and typically it's happened with not with friends that aren't too close or something, just like casual friends or whatever, because my girlfriend, this ship sailed a long time ago as far as like no phones when we're out. Like she's like, yeah, this is way better just to be dealing with each other. But if I'm out with a new person and they have their phone there and they're like, oh, okay, I gotta go do this, I feel so alone. Like, it's a real feeling. I'm like, please, you just broke the momentum.
But, like, the 90s, like, early 2000, like, version of that was when people, like, would go out to smoke. You remember? Like, that was that was, like, the social, like, crutch of, like, being social, but, like, also being antisocial was, like, the smoker thing, And,
yeah.
I just find that really interesting because it's like a social media break, cigarette break, social media break. I just see the parallel in that.
Yeah, there's a clear parallel. And then also I just wonder, why does anybody still smoke? And I get it. Do you?
No, I quit. Good. Okay. I quit like a long time ago. So.
Do you know here circled back to my trip alone by myself when I was 21 to Italy.
Yeah.
When I went over there, I was like, Jesus Christ, everyone's smoking.
Oh, yeah.
They're smoking in the airports. They're smoking goddamn freaking everywhere. I'm like, these people fucking crazy with their smoking. So after about 4 or 5 days of just, holy shit, smoke, I was like, I gotta see what this is all about. Yeah. So I went and bought my first pack of cigarettes. It was a blue pack of, I think it was a French brand, Galoises or something.
Sounds
whatever,
fancy.
Galois, whatever it is. And because I saw a couple dudes smoking them, I'm like, okay, let's...
Give me the blue pack.
Yeah, I'll just take that one. And for like 3, maybe 4 days... Over that time period, I think I smoked maybe 8 or 9 cigarettes, and I fucking hated it. Mm-hmm. But I mean, my body hated it. That's obviously nowhere near being the point of being able to get addicted to it. But I understood it. Mm-hmm. I started to understand one of the many reasons why people smoke, but beyond the addiction, is like, oh, it gives you something to do with your hands. Like, that's the immediate benefit I felt. I was like, oh, I'm out here. I just finished my gelato. Now what am I going to do with my hands? I was like, okay, I'm going to take a cigarette out here, and I'm going to stand here, and I'm going to smoke. Like, right. Just like, it's a great way to people observe, which is what I was doing. Mm-hmm. And I was there with no cell phone or anything. Like,
sure.
Like, I needed something, I guess, in my hand, or just something to do, besides wander around and eating pizza. Mm-hmm. That was so good. So much bread. Mm-hmm. But I got it. I'm like, oh, it took me a few days. Like, this is... maybe it didn't even take me a few days. It might have taken the first cigarette. I was like, oh, this gives me something to do with my hands. Mm-hmm. So I think to your further connecting that parallel is your hand with that phone. It gives you something to do with your hands. Because our brains, like our brains, according to our brains, we are all hands. Like, neuroscientists have mapped the brains and its functions and how it applies to different parts of your body, where the sensory crap is. And our brains think our hands are like monsters. Like, our brains don't pay much attention to our legs, our lungs, our chest, or anything. But our hands do everything, especially our thumbs. Like, our thumbs... To our brains, our thumbs are like the most important thing ever. Like, wow, these people are all, I don't know what's going on out there, but they're all thumbs is what our brains think.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is. So we have this.
That makes a lot of sense, though.
Yeah, I'll slow that down so you let that sink in. Because
No,
the first time I heard that,
yeah,
and because I always think about it too, because I'm like, that makes so much sense why people do. It makes so much sense on so many levels. Like, our thumbs really are what separate us from the animals, separate us from our chimps, is like, I talk shit to my dog about it. I'm like, I just close this door. You don't have thumbs, so you're not going to be able to open it. All right? You're trapped in here now.
Oh, no, your dog sounds smart. Give him a little time,
Yeah, he would figure it out. But without thumbs, I was like, your dumb little brain has no idea what a thumb is. But because our brains are so fixated on our hands, because our hands do everything, that... it makes sense why something in our hands, like a phone like that.
It's a comfort, yeah.
It is and then the fact that you get to use your thumbs nonstop like that. Your brain's like, yep, this is good. This is 100% what you should be doing. Yeah, so that was my trip to Italy. That was many revelations on my solo trip to Italy. And that was one of them. Like, I get part of the reason why people smoke, but at the same time, I was like, oh. Like, I stopped just because I was like, this is so gross. Yeah. My body hates this. I hate the taste in my mouth. I don't like the way the food tastes after.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's just not complimentary to anything. But with that said, I don't know. I smoked 1 or maybe 5 cigarettes since that time. I just probably been about 10 years since I even tried another one because I'm like, oh, no more toying around. Like, I learned that.
Yeah, this is not for me. Yeah.
Just like when you ever chew tobacco?
Oh, God, no.
You never tried? You were West Virginia? Nobody ever offered you tobacco.
Oh, it was all around me, but I was good. No, thanks.
3 times I tried. Dip.
I'm a country girl, but, like, I'm not that country.
Got it.
Yeah.
You never dated a dude that would spit into a Coke can or a water bottle?
No, it was a McDonald's cup, and he drove like a Ford F-150.
Oh, this is a good dude.
Oh yeah,
hillbilly.
Good old country boy.
Oh.
Yeah, but no, not for me, thanks. And we didn't kiss for quite a while after.
Yeah, how do you talk to him about that?
They call it put a rub in. That's what they call
the rub.
Put a rub in.
Oh,
yeah.
God.
Yeah, no, thanks. It was good.
How did you like? Yeah, I can't imagine kissing. I can't imagine kissing.
No. Doesn't happen.
Wow. And he still kept doing it even though he wasn't getting kissed.
Not around me.
That's so gross, though.
Well.
Like, because I just feel like that kind of thing would linger so long. Anyways, I dipped. I don't know. That's what I heard them calling it.
Yeah,
Put in some dip.
It's a dip.
Put in some dip. Mm-hmm. I did it 3 times in my life. 3 times I threw up.
I'm sure you did.
Every single time, I was like,
the room was spinning.
Yeah. Like that's straight up nicotine, right? Like it's going right into your bloodstream right away. And I'm like, whoa. And I throw up. And I did it in the woods. Camping was the last time I did it, 6 years ago. Camping in the woods with a group of friends. One of them was a dipper. And he's just like, "Murr, murr." He's from the coal mining hills of Pennsylvania. So he's got that country boy, like, putting my dip right there. And I'm like, all right, give me some more. Let me try this again. And
then you vomit in front of everybody, and they're just kind of like...
I mean, I give them the heads up. I'm like, hey, I've only done this twice each time I threw up.
And he still gave it to you. Probably thought it was
fun. Yeah, because we're dude, you've never been in the woods with... because you're not a guy. If you're in the woods with like 6 or 7 dudes camping for a few days, guys do stupid shit. Like, that's the wrong number of... That's one thing I learned from that camping trip. That's the wrong number of dudes to have in a camping trip. The right number is 3, maybe 4. When you get above 4, everyone's doing dumb shit. That was one of the dumbest 2 days of my life of bad decisions. And you wouldn't think of how much trouble you could get in the woods. We did some stupid shit. Because you're like, why would your friend give it to you? It's because that was the least dumb thing we did that day.
I'm sure.
So, and it's like, yeah, I just remember being out of control. I'm like, oh my God, like, you're all totally normal, chilled people when it's just 1-on-1 or even just 3 of us. But you get 6 or 7 of us, like that testosterone, And that beer is just like, everything's a great decision. Fire. And then you throw fire in the mix. And there's bear pulleys. You know bear pulleys for sure in West Virginia. Camming. Like, we towed each other up on these bear pulleys. Like, giving each other, like, ass wedgies. Like, ripped through some of our pants. And, like, just not good stuff. So, yeah, me throwing up from dip. Because I gave everyone the heads up. I was like, hey.
Problem.
Yeah. Like, that was the least irresponsible thing.
And they'd be like, he puked, but he can still drink. Come on.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
That's a mentality.
Yeah. But I get why people do that too. I think it's more than just the chemical addiction. It gives you something to do while you're doing other stuff. I don't know. Do you have like any weird like for me, this may be the weird, I have to have a coffee here. It's such a psychological thing for me. And maybe, I don't know if it's a crutch, but I do also love drinking. I drink a lot of water and I drink a lot of coffee. But I don't know. It feels sort of like a crutch in the way that dip would be.
Your vice. Your vice. Your thing.
Kind of, yeah. Well, maybe it's a vice. I don't really have vices. I
don't know if that would be the right term, but like something that you have a habit of doing. Is that what you're asking?
It makes me feel like I'm engaged. I'm ready for this. I'm like, okay, I'm in this
zone.
Yes, that's a thing too. Like
the preparing, for the unprepared.
Yeah, it's an environmental thing, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Like when I'm in this room, sitting with someone, I must have an iced latte. Like, but maybe it's the same thing why people have such a hard time smoking cigarettes. Because you hear this a lot too. When people are trying to quit, it's like, I only smoke when I'm drinking.
Oh, sure.
So they put themselves in that environment of, I'm drinking. What do I need? I need a cigarette now.
So you got to quit both.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard people say that.
Just for a short period of time. But yeah, that's what I did. Like, I had to quit everything that was like a trigger when I quit smoking. And it was hard, but, it helped a lot. It made it so much easier because then, if you're not having alcohol and you're not like tempted by it, then you're not going to smoke. It just makes the likelihood of success to be a lot better than people who are like, oh, I'm going to go out drinking, but I'm trying to quit smoking. It's like, that's going to be harder. Like you're just making it more difficult for yourself. But
how old were you when you had your first cigarette?
I think I was like 18, 19.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you did wait like semi-adulty.
And it was like hard to start smoking, but I was in art school and you had coffee and you smoked cigarettes and yeah.
Was that really the pressure?
Oh, that was like the thing. Well, because like everybody who was like, the like, everybody would hang out on the smoke deck and, that's where you would socialize, and me being this girl from West Virginia who knew no one in this like new city and this new school was just like, well, I need friends, and it was a way to like hang out with people. So then that's how I kind of like met people, was through smoking. And then I became a heavy smoker and it was bad. It was like real bad. But then I was like, I quit. So
tell me, how bad?
How
heavy?
Like 2 packs a day.
Oh,
it was so bad.
Is that like 40-something cigarettes?
I have no idea, and I don't even want to think about it. But it was gross. It was bad.
Oh, that breaks my heart.
It was bad.
How recently did you quit?
It was like 8 or 9 years ago.
Oh man.
Yeah. So.
Good. You did it at the right time.
You can do it. Anybody can do it.
Dude, for sure.
Yeah. It's just like one of those like mind over matter. So for me, like when I quit smoking, I was like, I'm going to buy myself a brand new car. And all of my cigarette money went to my car payment. And obviously if I spent money on cigarettes, I couldn't afford my car. So you see how that worked. It's like kind of a...
You established a reward system.
If you will, yeah. It was also kind of like a necessity. It was like, I was like ass broke at that time. So it was like, all right, I bought this car. I can't afford it. But, this is what I'm doing. But
what can I cut out? How can I afford this?
I wanted to quit. Like, I honestly wanted to quit like a year after I started smoking, but.
What?
Oh, yeah.
You tried several times?
Yeah, probably 6 or 7.
Man.
Yep.
Wow. Does that get frustrating when you go back? If you say, I quit, because this happens with all smokers.
I think the way you have to look at it is that it's a process. And, like, what happens is... And I think this is anybody who has, like, an addiction to anything. Like, you're constantly, like, in a slight state of recovery, right? So, like, you're constantly quitting, right? So, when you quit... if you go back to it, like, you can't beat yourself up. You just have to make sure that you are planning the next time you're going to try, and you try and you try, and you just keep going for longer and longer and longer. And the goal isn't necessarily to quit. It's just to see how many days you can go without it. And then when you take out some of those other, like, factors that, like, kind of trigger you, it was hard for me to quit. A lot of people have, like, tremendous success. Like, it was difficult. So one of the things that I did, talking about your hands and keeping busy, is every time I wanted a cigarette, I would you do origami, and I would fold a paper crane every single time. So that was one of my big things. And I had, like, thousands of them. Wow. Yeah, but it was just a way of, like, trigger, repurpose that thought. And, you know, because after 3 days, like, it leaves your body, so you're no longer physically dependent on it. And I would fold a paper crane, and I'd be like, okay, going back.
Where'd you come up with that idea?
I don't know. I just did it. I used to just, like, you know, I just, like, fold them. And, like, you know.
Did you know how to do origami prior to that?
I knew how to do that, yes.
Okay.
So it's just kind of like, okay, what do I do? I'm going to do this.
So it was an accidental discovery because you're like, oh my God, that made me feel kind of good.
Well,
like,
it
did something to your brain.
Well, I think it was just like you were busy for a second, and it's a start-stop process, kind of like a cigarette would be a start-stop, and then you're like, okay, moving on to the next thing.
Ooh, I like that thought.
Yeah, so
I really like that. So let's make that idea bigger, because I relate, like, quitting things I know are bad for me, and just self-discipline and not letting things control me is such a massive part of my life. I don't like anything controlling me, including my emotions and thoughts. But so how does controlling that and quitting cigarettes, did you learn something from that and apply that to other things? Like, maybe I'll give an example for me. Mm-hmm. Say like sugar. Mm-hmm. Like, sugar was I couldn't believe how much sugar I was drinking. So this was roughly 10 years ago. I was like, whoa, dude, like, you got to probably stop. And this is when more information about sugar was really starting to come out. Yeah. Like we started to become more ubiquitous, like, everybody knew, like, oh yeah, you shouldn't have too much sugar, it's bad, and soda is terrible for you. So I started with, well, it seems like I'm drinking a lot of soda, and it seems like I'm addicted. It seems like every time I eat this specific food, and I mean, it'd be like 5 different types of food, whether it's Chinese food, pasta, pizza, whatever, burritos, like, I had to have soda with it. I was like, okay, I don't like that. That something is controlling me. I need to cut this out. So I just started cutting out soda. Mm-hmm. And then I realized the more I cut it out, then I started cutting out just sugar in general. Like, okay, no more cakes. All right, maybe just a lot less, or less frequent, less ice cream, less this, less that. And I started to get addicted to the feeling of getting rid of addictions, if that's one way to think about it. So when I hear someone like you saying that they quit this one thing, like, that's a massive thing to quit. Cigarettes is a crazy thing to quit. It's a crazy thing to start, because you think about it, like, why did I ever start this? How many times did that go through your head?
Oh yeah.
Right now you're probably like, why? I don't even know why I started that.
Well,
but you know why. But you're just like, why? Like, if I could talk to myself 10 years ago, whatever it was, like, for me, I kind of knew where I started. I was like, this is a social experiment. I'll have this under control, right? Yeah. I hope. I was like, I don't want to be a cigarette smoker, but I need to know about this. It's the exploratory nature of me. I needed to know. But for the sugar thing, I was like, oh, that might be my addiction. That could be my addiction. I don't want to be addicted to anything. So once I started getting control of that, then I applied that to a lot of things. Like, I started cutting out anything that I thought was diverting my attention, whether it was like watching too much baseball or football, which I don't watch any now. Just like, I barely have any sugar, like, barely. I have to, like, trick myself into having it now. And then I've had ice cream once a year for the past couple of years, and like, it's easy, like that, like, I get addicted, like, nothing can control me. I like getting up. I don't sleep in late. I don't stay up too late. I get my nice sleep. I don't watch anything stupid. I don't really drink anymore. I think I've had 3 beers this year. So I get addicted to not having any vices, really. Like, I don't know what my vices are right now. I don't know. Like we referenced the coffee. Maybe that's a vice. I don't know.
Or maybe it's just part of your, like, pattern. You know what I mean?
Maybe it's more of a living pattern.
I think there's a different, like, a vice is something that you, like, need to have, but if you didn't have that latte, you would still be okay. It's just like a comfort to you as opposed to, like, and need, you know? I think that's the big difference between a vice and then like these things that are comforting, if that makes any sense.
Well, it makes perfect sense because the podcast I did the other day, every podcast for the past, I don't know, 3 months, 4 months, I always meditate somewhere within an hour of starting the podcast. I'll do like a 5 or 10 minute meditation. And that coupled with the coffee, I'm like, it clears my mind.
And then
it gives me focus, and then the coffee gives me comfort too. But the podcast the other day, I decided, I was like, I'm gonna, because I don't like anything controlling me. Like, I need to know if I can just free will things. So I was like, okay, I'm not gonna meditate before this podcast, and I'm gonna see how it goes. It went okay. It went fine. I was like, oh, okay, good. I don't need that.
Yeah.
It's kind of along those lines what you just said.
Yeah.
Like a comfort, not an addiction, not a vice, but something you're used to doing at a certain time, and it's sort of a crutch almost, but it's just also it's familiar.
Well, it's like your process.
It's a process, yeah. But I need to break that process. Like, I don't like having too rigid of a process. I was like, I've done this for a long time, and I know it's beneficial, but let me make sure that I'm not leaning on that too much. Shit, I just realized next time I do a podcast, I'm not going to have a coffee because we're talking about this, so I could see if I could do it. Damn it. No, but it's still...
But it's important, you know.
Still to my question. So
it's for your little experiment then.
Right. I need to know, once again, that nothing has control over me. Like you with cigarettes. Has that bled into any other thing? Like I said, I'm addicted to not having addictions. Like, it's a weird...
Yeah, I actually did the same thing with sugar too. Yeah. I was like really gross with how much sugar I was like drinking. So like, and not even consuming, like drinking soda, like sugar and coffee. So like I cut that out. So now everything's like without sugar, and you know, yeah. And
it's all the drinking, like it's because my drinking was orange juice, soda. I mean, I drank a reasonable amount of water, but it was just like it was an afterthought. Yeah. It wasn't even an afterthought. It was like a tertiary thought. Like, oh yeah, I should probably have some water too. But if juice was around, which is just it's just soda without carbonation. And, you know, I also tricked myself living in Florida. I'm like, oh, there's orange juice everywhere. It's all natural, right? It
just comes from this orange.
Dude, it's just candy. It's liquid candy.
Yeah.
And like, oh, I'm in Florida. Of course I drink orange juice. But yeah, it's I love that feeling, not having things in control. So when I hear people, because I was just having this conversation last week with an uncle who's quitting smoking. He went from...
Is it the same one with other wives?
No. This is a different crazy one.
I could get why he smokes.
No, this is the one with the same wife for a long time. He's also he's equally crazy, just in a different arena of crazy. But yeah, he used to smoke 47 cigarettes a day, he said. Whoa! And that sounds like 2 packs plus, I think. Yeah. And he said he's down to 7 now.
Good.
And so I need to talk, when somebody tells me they're doing something like that, like I need to know, what are you thinking about? How does it make you feel? Why can't you just go to 0 also is my question. Like, okay, you went from 47 to 7, I don't know, 93% decrease, some math like that. Why not cut it down to 0? Like, what's that big leap like? And in the middle of us we were outside talking, in the middle of me, you know, kind of asking questions and probing more about the cigarette, something really fucked up happened. He pulled out a cigarette and started smoking because I started talking about it.
Yeah. That's the crazy thing too. Like when you're trying to quit smoking and like you watch a movie and somebody's smoking in it and you see them have that, you're like, whoop, I want a cigarette. But I will say that for anybody who's trying to quit smoking, like after a while, you know, you don't even have the urge. Like me one time, like probably in the last, like I was like, ooh, I like kind of feel like having a cigarette. And I was like, but I'm not going to do that. And but it wasn't even like about the smoking. It was the sensation of like, why am I even having that feeling? Like I haven't had that feeling for like years and years and years, which is why I think it's like a constant, like you never all the way out. You know what I mean? Like you can, and some people, they can go out, they can have like, you know, 2 or 3 in a night and then never smoke again, you know. God love them. I am not that girl, you know, but I don't have any desire. So like for your uncle, you know, the same thing too is like, it really comes down to like, why are you quitting? What are your goals? You know, like, what do you want this to look like? And, you know, it's just a process. as all things are.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's kind of what I wanted to know, his process.
Yeah, for sure.
As part of that. Like, what is your process? And then when we were saying goodbye, I was like, okay, you're 7 a day now. Now, next time I see you, I want you down to 3. And he's like, I shouldn't say I want you, but I was like, can you shoot? Because it's about him. It's not about what I want. I was like, what if you got down to 3?
Yeah, sometimes I think having like people help to like push you to those goals is also really helpful.
It's very important. I'm very aware of how important it is to talk to someone about that and ask them all their questions. Like, I'm encouraging him, like by asking these questions.
You're also going to call him out on it, and he knows that, so you're making him accountable.
Right.
Because the first person, the easiest person to walk away from is yourself. You know
so
what I
easy.
mean?
It's optional.
But if somebody else is like kind of like, I'm looking at you, like.
Well, it's just like when writing things down.
Yeah.
We all know if you write something down, you're kind of holding yourself accountable to something. Mm-hmm. But if you make a promise, a verbal or whatever to someone else, you're like, that's the equivalent of writing it down. Like, I'm responsible. I'm accountable to someone. Mm-hmm. So I told him, I was like, hey, all right, so you're at 7 a day now. What if you got down to 3 next time I see you? Probably a couple months. He's like, what about 5? And I was like, okay. Like, he was playing ball. Mm-hmm. He didn't say, oh, no, that's unreasonable. But I knew that just talking to him and me acknowledging, like, dude, that's a huge step. Like, that's so significant that you're doing this. And you're like 65.
Yeah.
Like, that's hugely significant. This shouldn't just be like, oh, good for you. Like, most people just, oh, good for you. Like, no, man, like, this is life, world changing. Like, you're changing the world. Like, even if it's your world, he's affecting me. Mm-hmm. And now I get to talk about it with someone like you. And maybe I'll share that story and like, oh,
maybe this inspire somebody else, yeah.
That's 100% it. I'm like, it's not just about you, man. Like, I have that story, and anything that I need to work better at and get better at, I can go back to a story like that too, like 1,000 of stories like that, because I love hearing people overcome little shit and continually improving. Continuous improvement is the whole purpose of life, probably, right? You're learning more, getting better at things, and discipline, and
passing on your wisdom to others.
Passing on your wisdom. Yeah, I talked to a 65-year-old dude. He better tell me something wise, or I'm walking away.
Or maybe it's your wisdom that you're supposed to pass on to him. It's not necessarily age.
No, it's not. Here's a screwed up thing to say too. I've always felt like since I was like 7 or 8 years old, I was like, am I wise? Like, I felt like an old man. Describing the social media thing to you.
Sure. I'm
like, I'm 21 and I have no interest in this. I can see what I think this is. This is gross and this is not good. Everyone's addicted to this stuff. Mm-hmm. I was like, am I wise or am I just a cranky old man? But it wasn't until the last several years. I'm like, I guess I was wise.
Or one and the same.
Yeah, like maybe
yeah.
I was just there are wise little kids, right? That don't need shit explained to them. Is why, like, growing up, I had friends that smoked. And I'm like, not doing that. That's dumb. Mm-hmm. And, had aunts and uncles that were dying from lung cancer. Okay, not doing that. Mm-hmm. Not doing that to that degree. And then uncles and stuff dying from liver disease. Okay, not doing that. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's... I guess observing is a form of intelligence, I guess, or
absolutely.
Wisdom.
But if you have the ability to adapt that insight, I think it's important. Yeah.
It is, because I question this all the time. Like, we all know this stuff. Like, why are you still smoking? We all know this. We all know that you're not supposed to do that. Because we all have the same information. I'm like, why aren't you heeding this? Why aren't you doing anything with that information? Mm-hmm. So it bothers me. I don't know, I have to ask you again. So you quit the smoking, and that leads to quitting sugar. And, like, you get proud of yourself, right? Like, so what else, like, are you still keeping that momentum going?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, I think the biggest thing for me is, like, just improving health and, overall, so.
Right.
But it's hard for me, just, like, for me, my biggest struggle right now is, like, work-life balance, and having time for both. That's, like, a really big struggle. But it's something that, like, I'm aware of, and it's something that I'm working towards, so. It's a work in progress. Right.
Yeah. Which we all are. Mm-hmm. And which is what makes life fun. It's like, oh, you're not finite. You're not a rock. You're a piece of clay. Mm-hmm. And you get to decide how you want that clay to look. And you can visualize it in the future. Like, I want that. I kind of always knew somewhere in my mid-30s, like when I was in my teenage years, I was like, I'm going to be kind of a crazy, really healthy person in my 30s. Mm-hmm. I always imagined that as a little kid. I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
I don't drink sugar, soda, pizza, not like once or twice a year for any of that stuff. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of what I thought. And then I realized now, even in my 30s, I'm like, oh, I could picture me as 60 or 70 years old. This is what I want to look like then. This is what I want to be doing then. Because I realized, like, oh, you can change.
Oh, yeah.
That's that's such a revelation to realize you can change. Like, multiple friends try to lose weight and be healthy for years. And I'm like, I just try to beat that home, dude. You can change. Like, you're not this brick. Like, you can change the future. You can change yourself.
But I think that, like, for me, so, like, especially, like, weight, like, I was a lot heavier when I was smoking and when I was, like, consuming all of that crap. Then I lost a ton of weight, and then I've gained weight back, which I think is, like, weight issues for women is, like, that's a whole other podcast.
Well, your bodies are designed to gain weight.
Right. But the thing is I think that sometimes people feel defeated when they have that upswing again, and they're like, you know, so for me, I'm heavier than I want to be. Fine. But when I get out of bed the next morning, it's like, okay, what am I going to do that's good for me, and not letting the gain necessarily defeat the progress of the future, you know? So it's like, I think that that's really important for, like, mentality of, like, having focus of goals, but understanding that, again, it's not linear, you know? Like, it's not like start finish. Everybody wants to think that it goes that way, but it's not, you know? So I think just, like, people really just need to have a lot more patience with themselves and be a lot kinder to themselves, and just, like, remember what the end goal is and not make excuses, right? You're not making excuses, but you're also being kind to yourself and being like, okay, it's not like, oh shit, you had a bad day, like, go get a pie. It's like, you know, but if you did eat a cookie, like, you can't beat yourself up. You know what I mean? It's like that kind of thing. Like, don't beat yourself up over that, but really think about, like, is it worth your goal? You know, and that's the question. A lot of times people just want to ignore that, again, interior little conversation, and they're like, you know, but you can't, but if you make that choice, that was your choice, move on, you know, instead of, like, sitting there and wallowing in pity, you know?
Right. And I think you just saying, like, eating a pie versus a cookie or whatever, like, as long as you think about it and think of, like, all right, I'm kind of bumming out, I'm kind of stressed, or whatever it is, like, I'm craving this, I'm craving that, you know what would make me feel good right now? A cookie. But is it really the cookie, or is it, can we swap that in for a paper crane? Do you know what I mean? Right.
So, like, that's really
find
the
a new
thing.
Paper crane.
Well, it's finding that, like, replacement, you know? And it might not necessarily be like, oh, you know, like, I want a cookie, so I'm going to go run. Like, who does that, you know? But maybe it's something else that you can do that's, like, productive.
That is certainly one way to do it. So abstaining from it and replacing it with something else is great. My thinking, though, another way to do it, too, is rather than just replacement, is like, okay, if I was craving cookie or something, let's just say recently, like a month ago, I had my first ice cream of the year, my first ice cream since last August, and I was, like, thinking about it for, like, weeks, and I'm like, okay, I gotta wait for a moment where I'm craving it, and I really think so let's just bring back to the cookie thing, like, say, you know what make me feel good right now, I know it'll be a hit of sugar and it'll probably put me to sleep and I'll feel awesome, is that cookie. And all right, when was the last time I had a cookie? And why do I want it right now? Oh, it's because I am bummed out. Okay, and so don't make a habit of this. Like, you're allowed that one cookie as long as you don't make a habit of every time you're feeling bummed out, go do that.
But see, you have self-discipline.
I don't know. But we can all do it. If it's just a thinking process. I don't have as much discipline as I want, because I think you can always have more, because why not? Like, you need some discipline to, I don't know, as creative and chaotic as my brain might be, I need a lot of discipline to kind of keep it under a safe umbrella, so I'm not going off the rails. But it's like, okay, as long as you know why that cookie's okay, and you're not gonna, you just kind of make a little promise. You're like, okay, I don't have to. Maybe I could just go make an origami crane or swan, but as long as I kind of make that promise to myself, just this cookie, this one time, to make me feel good, and I don't do this repeatedly, because people do this with alcohol, right? It's like, whoa, I can't believe how much people drink. I can't believe how much friends I have that are still in their 30s, 40s, and 50s that drink so much. Like, friend told me, he's like, yeah, you know, I'm just drinking by myself this, you know, the last couple nights, but not much. I've only had like 6 or 7. I'm like, what? For me, that's crazy. Just 6 or 7 beers by yourself. It's like, no, man. And it's a crutch. Like, This is what I do. But as long as you know you're not doing that cookie for a crutch or that beer or whatever, like, I think it's fine. But next time, maybe do that origami crane. Because, like, okay, I made a promise. The cookie was going to fill this void that first time, but the next time was going to be no cookie. But you also have to want, and you require having things to fix about yourself, right? I think we all got they're never going to run out of things to fix, right? Whether it's how nice you are to people, whether it's your weight, whether it's your job, whether it's money, whether it's your romantic relationship, your relationship with your dog that's going to die and get eaten by a bear. Like, you have always things to improve upon. So you got to approach them, life kind of as a problem solver, I think. Is like, ooh, good, I got problems to solve. I don't know if many people are hardwired that way. I'm hardwired that way. I love problems. Because that means I get to solve them. Just like with you, if you get clients, photography clients, they're coming to you, you are solving a problem.
Yeah, any kind of creative work that I do, even when people come in my classes, still problem solving. But it's trying to figure out how to, like, riddle that puzzle for them, because, you know, everybody learns differently too.
So yeah, you're solving multiple problems at once, especially if you're doing a class, right? I mean, especially if you're doing a wedding, even just two people, like wedding pictures, or I don't know what you do, go in the woods or in front of buildings or whatever those pictures are called. Do people have engagement pictures? Or all right, so those,
Yeah.
Do you do those?
Yeah,
so that stuff. So, like, you are solving a problem, because the problem is, and there's infinite amount of solutions. Someone like you can come up with okay, give me information. That's why you're asking all these questions from them, right?
Yeah.
Listen, it's like a computer. You got to think of yourself as a computer, right? That's kind of how I think of myself sometimes. Like, just give me information, tell me things, and I'm going to output something. Input, output, input, output. You remember those movies, the Short Circuit movies?
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah.
My favorite line, and I was a little kid when I watched this, and I loved this line, and I still love it now, is when Johnny Five goes to the bookstore, and he's running around reading books, and he's like 1,000 miles an hour, woo, and he just goes, more input, like he's just voraciously reading, stacks, like he was addicted to information. And that always stuck with me. That's how I think when I'm sitting and talking with someone. I'm like, maybe that's the theme of my podcast. More input. Give me more input so I have a problem to solve. I think that's what it is. I really like, I occasionally have to watch Short Circuit or just YouTube that scene. Yeah, because I'm like, because it gets me excited. I don't know how 7 years old
that
when
would
I watched
make
it.
a really good piece of artwork for your wall.
Thank you for solving the problem. See? Thank you. That is brilliant.
Yeah.
Him just a picture of Johnny Five with a caption, more input. That's instant conversation piece.
It is.
You just solved a problem because I gave you information about my crazy brain as a little kid and something that still affects me, and you took that and you molded that into a really fun solution. All right, good. I'm doing that.
Okay.
Do you want to wrap this up?
Yeah.
All right. Has this been fun?
Yeah.
Here's the good and bad. Is I know I ramble and I talk a lot, but that's indicative of, like, okay, you're my friend now. Like, I get rambling with friends. If it's somebody that's more like, you know, the question answer.
It's better than the conversation not going anywhere, and you're just
right.
You're like,
Did you enjoy yourself though? Is my only concern.
I thought it was really satisfactory. Thank you so much for inviting me for this opportunity.
Satisfactory is as good as I can do. That's what I shoot for. All right, Katherine Wright, and I know.